And to that piece of lieutenant that's always on his podcast, bash us, him.
Attention to roll call. We're live.
That's right. Live, 8:05 Eastern Time and 5:05 Pacific Time. Good morning. The unions are offering free breakfast this morning. Just go to the canteen. You can get your free breakfast. Not. Anyway, listen, good morning, everybody. It's friends and listeners already here. I think the title is actually pretty funny. We titled it Downfall of the Eric Adams Administration. But at the same token, I think the title kind of implies that they ever had a positive uptick, which I think is quite the farce. So, John, let's do it, brother.
Yeah, so apparently Winnie Greco resigned. Abba Rasanova, I don't know how to say her name. She resigned, the liaison to Turkey. I'm sorry, she was fired. Sheena Wright's expected to step down earlier. She's going to submit a letter of resignation. And, a bunch of people all laughing at, what just seems to be like, like a daily rerun of Eric Adams going, yeah, it's no big deal. They just had, they wanted to leave personal reasons. They decided to focus on their family, So now I think we're up to about 26 members of the Adams administration that have either been resigned, raided, or not fired. Absolute insanity. Political put out an article. I'll bring that up in a second. I went on New York One yesterday. I didn't even see it. I don't even know where it is, but spoke about Phil Banks, the appointment of Phil Banks. Eric, they asked me, and they asked me what did I think about Phil Banks when I was on the job, and what did I think about him leaving, and then what did I think about Eric Adams appointing him? So I. If you don't mind, I'll tell you what I said. But what do you think about that?
I'm sure I didn't get a chance to see it. I didn't even know that you went on New York One until now, which is great, brother. But I'm sure you had very positive things to say about him. I'm sure it was very positive things to say. First of all, he's an unindicted co-conspirator. The fact that Eric Adams put him in such an illustrious position as the deputy mayor, but we know he was AKA the real police commissioner of the NYPD, while Key Chancellor was there, while Ed Caban was there, along with Kaz Daughtry and John Schell. But absolutely, it was the most ridiculous appointment. It just goes down to the failure of the leadership of Eric Adams. That's why I think it's kind of funny. When we say the downfall of Eric Adams' administration, kind of insinuates that there was an uptick, a positive part, but that's absolutely not true. It's almost to the point, John, I'm curious if they take turns, like, okay, who's up to resign? Who's going next? Yeah, maybe Philip Banks does need to spend time with his family before he gets a potential indictment and before he gets potential jail time. Because will he escape from it this time? I don't know. I think he's playing Russian roulette. I think he got lucky the first time. I think he should have just sat it out. He got lucky, but you know what? Thieves are greedy, and they always get caught.
Yeah, so I basically said I was like, I didn't really know anything about Phil Banks other than he was a fast riser. He makes it the chief of department. When he's the chief of department, we have the whole Eric Gardner scandal that breaks out as a result of his office sending Daniel Pantaleo to go handle that complaint of someone selling Lucy's and marijuana in front of that deli. Then I said, then the corruption scandal breaks out immediately after he runs out. He gets appointed first step. He resigns about a day or two. I don't remember the exact time frame, but very quickly after being appointed. I don't even know if he served a day or got sworn in as the first step. I don't remember. It was so quick. I said, and then from that point, he becomes an unindicted co-conspirator. So he's the absolute last person that I think anybody should appoint as the deputy mayor of public safety. Now, I'm not saying he can't be advising in the background because people often accuse the things, right? And it doesn't necessarily mean that it's so. But just the appearance of it alone, I don't think for an incoming mayor, you should have put him in such a high profile position or even in a named position at all, And so I was like, that was questionable. And then I said he had a lot of critics. I was one of them when he was appointed. And he basically proved all of us right because, again, he leaves surrounded in scandal. And so the reporter asked, so what's the cautionary tale of Phil Banks? And I was like, well, it's more of a cautionary tale for New York City of exactly what not to do, what a mayor shouldn't do. It's more than it's a tale of Phil Banks, you know?
Yeah, I mean, listen, you made a great point, right? We don't want to be defined by labels that when you're innocent until proven guilty. At the same token, I always use this terminology. The preponderance of evidence has been met that this administration is riddled with clouds of suspicious activity. It's just there. And again, I get it. Even if Philip Banks is innocent and not guilty of potential charges, you don't want to put him in a luxurious position, right? Maybe his intelligence, maybe his experience, his fortitude put him in a spot in the background until you vindicate his name, if need be. And I like to use myself as an example, right? I've been coined as the most complained cop, and with that, there is a lot of suspicion when it comes to the left, and they don't understand the nomenclature of the CCRB and the bias and disdain, right? For them, they see me as some type of monster, and I own that name, most complained cop, as a moniker to mock the entire system, and they don't get it. But with that being said, does that label hurt me in many aspects? Could that hurt me being put in a luxurious position for a new mayor? If I was to be appointed a position, it potentially could. So it does take time to vindicate your name. Yes, it's unfortunate sometimes, but what do we see with this administration? We see that Phil Banks was not vindicated. We see that there is some teeth to it, and that these clouds of suspicion are really come to fruition. And again, I believe the preponderance of evidence has been met. Are they guilty beyond reasonable doubt? No, but we will see coming soon. I think there will be superseding indictments for this entire administration, and I do see that we'll see more individual indictments than we expect. And I do believe that it's strategically done on how they're resigning. I think that Eric Adams is having these conversations of when and who should resign. But I do think he's going to be the last man standing.
Yeah, I mean, I don't think we've ever seen it like this. It's a weird turn of events. It's normally mayors have stepped down and then their appointments are removed. The new mayor makes different appointments, and that'll be a process in due time. I think what we're witnessing is the reverse of that. I honestly think what we're witnessing is the mayor being told, get rid of everyone else so that the incoming mayor doesn't have to deal with the appointments that you made. We haven't really seen anyone get made. So we have an interim police commissioner. I don't know the standing of the new schools chancellor. He's had deputy mayor after deputy mayor leave, and no one's been announced in place. I think these are the last days of a dying regime. We're watching the mayor take apart the web that he created. So it's kind of unusual. In the past, we've had mayors step down, but they were the ones that stepped down, and then the incoming mayor came and made their own appointments. I wouldn't even necessarily say they removed the other people. They just made their own appointments. They're like, hey, thanks for your service. I don't need you here. What we're seeing here is a lot different. But I'll give it to him. I'm sure, if we get the press conference, if we get any quotes from him today, I'm sure we're going to see him say exactly what everyone's expecting him to say. Yeah, Winnie, Phil, Raina, they just wanted to move on. They just wanted to move on with their lives. And, it's nothing to see here. Everything's fine. We stay focused, grind, no distractions. That's what consistently what we hear out of this dude.
I always talk about this. I believe it's small unit leadership breakdown, right? And on every level, leadership has to take ownership and responsibility. And so we can compare it to our experience. If you're an anti-crime sergeant, typically on average, you usually have about 5 to 6 cops on your team. So if you, if you're an anti-crime sergeant and you had a team of 6 guys on your team, and all 6 were absolutely terrible, they were not functioning properly, they weren't doing their job, would we remove all 6? No, we would remove the leadership and this is completely the opposite. We've never seen anything like this before. I've never seen anything like this in any organization, especially administration of politics in New York City, where we're removing all the components, but the head component that controls the entire component itself stays in place. And again, it just doesn't make any sense. It just shows that when we have people that don't have moral principle and guts, I mean, Kathy Hochul, the fact that she will not pull the trigger and remove Adams should have been removed first. Let the new mayor come in, and then the new mayor should start. If the new mayor wants to clean house, say everybody's going to go, and I'm bringing all my appointments, that's the way it should be. But not what we're seeing right now, where everyone goes and everyone else gets the blame and gets the cloud of suspicion and free up Eric Adams from all this dust. And then Eric Adams can say, okay, it's time for me to step down if that's the case. Because clearly Kathy Hochul is not going to pull that trigger. I think she's afraid of the race card. So we've never seen this play out in this way, just completely the opposite. You know, I believe in what Jocko Willink says. There's no bad troops. There's only bad leaders. And even on Eric Adams' level, I agree with that same motto.
Yeah, so it's funny, you know, you said that yesterday. You said, you know, Hochul scared to remove him, and then the Post did an article about that they did an article later in the day, like Hochul scared to remove him. I don't know, man. I agree with you. That's exactly what it looks like. But I think in politics, the things that are being said publicly and what happens in the background are much different. Clearly, nobody was leaving, right? Nobody was leaving Eric Adams' administration. Every time there was a rumor that somebody was leaving for the last 3 weeks, I mean, we've had, what are we up to now? Like, I don't even know. I think it's like seven or eight people, and his top people are gone out of his administration. And in only 3 weeks, and every time a person got named that they were stepping down next, he's like, that's a rumor, that's a lie, stop spreading misinformation, listen to me for the truth. And then sometimes within the hour they step down. Sometimes it was within the hour. So I kind of think the same thing's kind of going on with Hochul. He's got to go. He's hurting the Democratic Party. I think Kevin Strauss says, but the guy that will take his place is for the worse. Again, I'm not going to agree with that statement. I mean, by all means, everything appears that a criminal syndicate is running New York City at this point. I don't know how it gets worse than that. And not only is it a criminal syndicate, but we're controlled by leftist progressive socialists already in city council and in the assembly and in the Senate. So I don't really see what much changes. I think there's much room for improvement, regardless who comes in, even if it's a Democratic socialist, because they're controlling New York City and New York State, in case you weren't aware. So I don't know what everyone's freaking out about. It's like, oh, Jumaane Williams, he's an activist. Yeah. Oh, Jumaane Williams, he said he eats edibles. Yeah. Guess what? Eric Adams said he'd rather be smoking pot and sniffing that white, right? Right when he called us all crackers. Guess what? He's an activist. He himself is an activist. Him and Jumaane are friends. So I don't understand that they're one and the same to me. Eric Adams said early on, and I don't think you guys I always say, like, everybody has like a short memory. Eric Adams consistently says when it comes to Alvin Bragg, me and Alvin Bragg on public safety are one and the same. So, I mean, you think Eric Adams supports you as a cop? You're out of your mind. Why, he gave you a raise? You were getting a raise. You were getting a raise anyway. And he gave you, and honestly, he sold you a bag of goods, and so did your unions. They sold you a bad deal. It was a terrible deal. Here, take this 16% raise, but I'm going to take your healthcare and retirement. And you guys are like, yeah, let's do it. Morons. That I'm telling you, that will come out to be over 100% decrease in your salary if it comes to fruition. If Marianne Pizzatola and New York City retirees, and if to those of you that are on the job or off the job and not supporting Marianne Pizzatola or New York City retirees organization, you're out of your mind. I mean, that raise will cost you 116%, minus 116%. You didn't get a 16% raise. You got a minus 116% raise because it will bankrupt you.
Hey, listen, shout out to Patrick Donahue. Breaking news, the Finest Unfiltered podcast is the #1 reason So many retirees get up before 8 a.m. Monday through Thursday, including Juju, Patrick Donahue. Not just retirees. Juju, who's at the upper echelon of the police department, spends his or they, their pronouns, they and them, spend their entire day at work at New York's Finest Down for the podcast. So, Juju, it is a pleasure. Patrick Donahue, shout out, brother. Thank you so much. I like to talk about my experience also as a leader in a leadership position. I kind of compare it to Mayor Eric Adams in a sense. Like, I can't believe that he has no shame. We talk about this all the time. He has no shame. I always felt in a leadership position that when my men and women, when they would fail, I felt I failed. That's my failure. And when they did well, I felt proud. Like, that's my success. To this point, at this point, I still keep in touch with the majority of the cops that worked for me. And they're all doing great. Some of them are sergeants, some of them are lieutenants now, some of them are detectives. And I'm proud of them. I feel that it's their success is also my success. And sometimes I speak to some of these cops now that are sergeants, and they tell me that, how they're leading and some of the stuff that they're doing. I'm like, and I get off the phone and I have a sense of pride. Like, wow, I feel they're doing so great. I feel it's like my legacy continues, and then when they move on, eventually, as they teach people, they'll pass the torch, and then their legacy moves on. So that's why I just don't understand how Eric Adams has no shame in this, that he doesn't feel the failure of this administration is his failure, unless he just like a total mental patient. Because honestly, if either he's playing an act behind closed doors, he really does care, or he's just like there's something mentally wrong with him, because this is not normal behavior. This is not normal behavior by any stretch of the means at all.
Yeah, no, it's absolutely not. None of this is and Joe Rosco says Giamatti isn't the problem. It's the empty suits that would be running for mayor. 100%, Joe. I agree with you. I mean, I think to me, that's scarier than having an interim mayor, whoever it may be. Whoever an interim mayor is going to be, the scarier thing is who's actually going to be the mayor. But again, none of it's scarier than us being so apathetic that we said, oh, you know what? It could be worse. So let's let a criminal syndicate control New York City and the New York City Police Department while they're chasing thousands of NYPD officers out, thousands of New York City residents and businesses out. I think to me, that's the ultimate scariest thing there is that, no, let's just let them take hundreds of millions of dollars in contracts, and them and all their friends get rich, help nobody, not the migrants, not the homeless, not anybody, not anything that they're going after. All these bullcrap technology contracts that are going out the door, all being funneled to them, themselves, their own businesses, their family businesses, their friends. I think that's the scarier thing in all this. But again, I'm remain solely optimistic in all this, because I think this is a great awakening. Like, if this isn't slapping you in the face, New York City, if you're not sitting there saying, and New York State, by the way, too, because New York City is a red state, but yet we have all these wackos in the Senate and the Assembly, and we have all these uncontested seats. We have all these uncontested seats, and we have the PBA and the SBA and the LBA and the DEA and the CEA. And all these, the FDNY, whatever there is, and all these police unions and first responder unions funding these wackos, and we're like, oh yeah, they're endorsed by the PBA, they're endorsed by the DEA, they must be good. It's like, no, if at this point, if you're endorsed by any of these police organizations, that's honestly a check for you as a voter to say, you know what, I got to do my research on that candidate and the person they're running against, because more than likely, if you're getting an endorsement from a police union in New York State or New York City, you're more than likely anti-police, pro-criminal.
And it's a little off topic, but I got to laugh. Yvette says, is that a Biggie shirt you have on, John? Not even a Tupac fan. Boy, oh boy, what am I going to do? Yeah, I saw the shirt too. That's outstanding. But
I like Tupac, actually. I like Tupac. Follow us on the Finest Unfiltered. You can see our memes. I put a lot of hip-hop with it. So,
yeah, listen, this administration is just something we've never seen before, snarled with suspicion. I say I think the preponderance of evidence is there. I think clearly if there wasn't any potential for indictments, if this administration was free from any guilt, there would not be a resignation after resignation. It would not be a calculated response in this manner. And we wouldn't have that response where it was pretty much an admission of guilt that, there shouldn't be a probe from the court to this magnitude. No one has said, hey, we're completely innocent. And even Eric Adams kind of alluded to himself in his first response to the indictment, which was, well, this is pretty much a political persecution, and that if they find me guilty, that this is because this is because I did this for you. He didn't say that I am free from all charges, that no matter what, I'm not guilty, and this is total nonsense. That's not what he said. He said, if they find me guilty, it's because of this. So he prepared you that this may be going down. He prepared you for it. And so did his lawyers. His lawyers prepared you also. Again, I'd like our friends and listeners just to take note. Here's Eric Adams. He's always smiling. The bubble could be going. I mean, all these buildings could be crumbling. There could be dust everywhere. There could be fires, but he's still smiling. That's why I say, is this smile real? Because if this smile is real, if this smile is the same smile that he has at home, then he has a legitimate mental problem. Honestly, legitimately has a mental problem. He has a serious case of narcissism, something we've never seen before. And if it's an act, he's a hell of an actor. I hope that it's actually an act, because if it's not, he needs serious mental help, honestly. Here's the title: The Downfall of the Eric Adams Administration. Now, the downfall, we see that, right? It's tearing apart, but it also insinuates that there was actually a positive part of this administration that I can't think of. There's nothing in my mind that sticks out in particular that I can say, here was a great appointment. Here's a great appointment. Here's what they did for the city. I can't think of anything positive. We've said it before, and it's not to be mean. It's not because I want to bash this administration. If there was, I think John and I are pretty fair. With all the attacks we get from John Shell and Kez Daughtry and other people of the upper echelon, even when they do something that's pretty favorable, we call it out. We say, hey, great job. We do it with the union. So I think we give a pretty fair assessment. But unfortunately, if someone can think of something great by this administration, put it in the comments. I'd love to hear it, because I can't.
The best thing that he did, in my opinion, is because she's a female and she's a black, he promoted Keechon Sewell, an inexperienced executive with only 20 years of experience, to the police commissioner. But that by far, she was actually good. She was actually someone of character. She was someone of presence. I thought she was professional. And I think it was a fluke, honestly. I think it was a complete fluke that he appointed her. And it appears to me that she actually had integrity and said, you know what, I'm out of here. I'm not dealing with this anymore. That's what it appears to me. So I think that was by far his best and only appointment that made sense. And even that was only done just for a first. It wasn't done because, she's the best person for the job. It was not that at all. He was like, no, my police commissioner is going to be a female. And then he went one further. My police commissioner is going to be a female black. And that's all it was. It was to check a box. And I think it was a fluke, and that was his best appointment, but he couldn't even hold on to her. So that shows exactly who Eric Adams is. When he has someone that actually is talented, someone that could rise to the occasion, he can't even hold on to them, right? Because again, like I said, you could make some people right now that maybe aren't qualified to be the police commissioner, but you make them the police commissioner, they're going to do a great job, And I don't think she ever got the chance to do a great job. And I'm not saying that she did do a great job. I'm just saying she had more integrity than the rest of them. She clearly was not like the rest of this dream team, or what are they called now? The Gotham Brothers, or whatever the hell else they call themselves. I like to call them a criminal syndicate, is what I like to call them, because that's what they are. They're a criminal syndicate. And, Tom says, I don't blame Adams at all that he's still trying to stay on. I blame the citizens of New York not actually demanding he leaves. And I really blame the press for not doing that job and shame him out. Tom, I agree with you 1000%, dude. And the other thing you left out there is the politicians. Like, where are they? They should be demanding his resignation. Why are we agreeing with Tiffany Caban and Lincoln Wrestler alone? Like, this should be a bipartisan stance. The city of New York's compromised. The entire Eric Adams administration's compromised. He needs to be immediately removed so we could go forward. He should not be sitting there in charge of the lives of over 8 million people. The lives, the daily lives, and the funding of over 8 million people. So yeah, you're right. It's the citizens in New York should be demanding it. Everyone, Democrat, Republican, socialist, libertarian, whatever the hell you are, you should be demanding Eric Adams should be out. The media on all sides should be demanding Eric Adams get out. Every single politician should be demanding Eric Adams get out. And it's not happening. And you're 100% right, Tom.
Shout out to our friend, awesome friend to the podcast, Arthur rolled in $9.99 to the podcast. Arthur, that was really nice, brother. You didn't have to. Thank you so much. Mayor Adams for Prison 2025. Check out Arthur rolled in, awesome guy. I think that's a fantastic statement. Actually, I think that statement earlier was that by Tom proves what we always talk about, that it's the people that have the power. The people elect public servants. And unfortunately, Eric Adams sees it as the people are supposed to serve him. These are not the kind of people that we want in power. We want people of humility. We want people that want a life of service to serve the people, that really care about people and put people before they put themselves. But that's not what we see with the Eric Adams administration. We see a high level of greed. We see the potential that there's private contracts that Eric Adams and his friends benefit from this administration, benefit from the taxpayer, benefit on the backs of New York City, which ultimately could put New York City in a complete financial fiscal crisis, which I do believe that if we continued on this path, and we talked about it yesterday, 2025, we may start to deteriorate from these pension systems because of the Eric Adams administration. So, this goes back to, I think that's a fantastic statement what you're saying, Tom. The people have the power, right? We elect these people to serve us, to serve the good people of New York City or any level in the country when you elect people to serve you. But the people also have the power to protest and stomp their feet and say, we want these people out. They're not serving us properly. So the people have to realize that, and they have to put their feet down. Arthur, again, thank you so much for donating to the podcast. And people really have to put their feet to the fire. I say this all the time. I really believe that in a patriarch society that we live in, that the rights that we have, we allow people to govern. Like I used to tell my cops, you have to be humble with people, because the reality is this: when we go out and we serve the good streets of New York City, for instance, if I'm working the South Bronx, let's say approximately the population there is about 300,000 people. How many cops are actually out in the street at a given time in that area? Let's say maybe 100 cops actually have their boots on the ground, if that. That's a lot. Probably not that. But the people allow us to govern them, because the reality is, if the entire South Bronx, 300,000 people came out and said, and tried to take over the police department, they could. The reality is they could. So they allow us to serve them. They allow us to police. And the same thing goes with the people when it comes to New York City. We're allowing Eric Adams and his administration to serve the public. We also have the ability to shut them down. And it comes from information. You got to get your voices out there. The squeaky wheel gets the oil. So let's change gears. Let's talk about our account, brother, when it comes to the Finest Unfiltered podcast. John, I'll let you talk about it, because we had a little riff yesterday on social media. Let's get into it.
Yeah, so Viral News New York City, I have no idea what his problem is. I don't know. I used to think he was an independent reporter. He's proven me absolutely wrong in the last few months. He was attacking Sal Greco, myself, and Eric for a while. Once he buttoned up with the likes of Kaz Daughtry, John Shell, and Eric Adams. So whatever. I don't care. Everybody's entitled to their opinion. I could really care less. I had posted a photo a while back I posted a photo that came from a video that he had. So someone sent me a photo. It was a still of a video that he had. It had his mark on it. Like, I didn't try to put it as our own or anything, but the photo was a still of Kaz Daughtry with his knee on either the shoulder or the neck of a perp. Right now, again, I don't have any issue with that move, but apparently they do. So I just want to know what the NYPD calls that move, because, if a regular rank and file officer did that, they would get arrested for violating the diaphragm law. They would receive numerous CCRBs. They would, they would be all over the front page of the paper. So Kaz Daughtry had his knee in the neck. So either on the neck or on the shoulder, whatever it was, but he was doing the same exact move that put Derek Chauvin in jail for the rest of his life, and the move that's blamed for George Floyd overdosing. So he put his knee on that neck. So I posted that photo and I asked, like, what do you call this move to Kaz Daughtry? So in the background, Viral News wasn't asking, he was demanding. He was saying to me, you better take that photo down now. If you don't take that down, that's a copyright. I was like, no, I'm not taking anything down. And he's like, well, I'm going to get your account taken down. And I was like, do what you got to do. And then, he's like, I could sue you, blah, 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 blah. I was like, do what you got to do, bro. I don't care. I'm not taking it down. I don't care. I said, and if you do that, I'm going to let everyone know that you're covering up police brutality, right? Because he was an Antifa guy. Then he was with a BLM guy. Then he was a moderate, but, he knew there was some bad police. But now he sides with the bad police. So whatever. I don't really care. I was like, I'm not taking it down. Sue me. Do whatever you want to do. I don't really care. So, he starts up with Sal Greco yesterday. I said something. Eric said something. Next thing I know, he's going full force at us. Oh, I'm a liar. I lie. I lie to my followers. Completely out of his mind, completely unhinged. And then boom, I get this notification. Your account has been locked. Your account has been locked because X received a complaint, right? It's like, oh, wow, that's weird. That's weird. That's the same exact thing that you did to the Freedom Rally, who you also used to be friends with, who you told them, by the way, to use your footage. We have a video of that. Freedom Rally put that out on their Instagram yesterday, of him actually saying that. Use my footage, share my footage, blah, blah, blah. And then he gets New York Freedom Rally's account taken down. And he supposedly aligned with them. So he used to align with Antifa. He went after them. Then he aligned with BLM. He went after them. Then he aligned with the Freedom Rally. He went after him. Then he aligned with the Finest Unfiltered. He went after us. Now he's going after Sal Greco. I like, the kid's all over the place. He's out of his mind. So he's like, oh, you should get an email that shows who filed the complaint. I never got an email. I don't know where it is. I never got the email. But I'm telling you right now, I don't care what it says, what the piece of content is. I don't believe in any coincidence. In my opinion, he did this. He's mass reporting my account, and he's like, oh, now that you said I did it, I'm gonna do it even more. My account's been getting mass reported forever. Instagram, Twitter, YouTube, everything, every single thing. I could post on Instagram a picture of a cat, and it'll tell me that I violated community policies. Anything I post, I get nothing. It doesn't matter what it is. It could be a heart. It could be a picture of a bike. It doesn't matter. So, like, my account's been getting mass reported. I don't believe that it was him the entire time. But again, I don't care what the piece of content was. It's way too convenient that we're arguing online, and all of a sudden I'm getting complaints against my accounts and all this other stuff. So it's absolutely ridiculous. I don't care what that kid says. He's absolutely out of his mind, and he's going down with the ship. Like I said, he's the violinist on the Titanic, like this. And as the Eric Adams administration sinks, he's literally going to have no friends. I don't know who he's going to align with, because even the politicians don't like him. The media doesn't like him. Antifa doesn't like him anymore. BLM doesn't like him anymore. We don't like him anymore. The cops realize he's a phony. I guess he's going to be hanging out with John Shell and Kaz Daughtry in the retirement home somewhere. I don't know what his problem is.
So it's funny that you keep referring to him as kid. And the reality is, the reason why he acts like a child. He acts like a complete child. He doesn't act like an adult. He's not a professional. Anytime that we have a disagreement or some type of debate on social media with Viral News, first of all, he doesn't even come back at us as Viral News. He comes back with his other account as Lio Press. It's quite interesting because he doesn't want to detract from any potential followers on Viral News, and he starts to use Lio Press. What's interesting about that is, again, he acts like a complete child, and he blocks everybody. But it's quite interesting he hasn't blocked myself and John yet, which I think is because Juju and John Shell and Kaz Daughtry need Viral News to do his bidding. So this all started because clearly I can see the progression of Viral News really button up to John Shell and Kaz Daughtry, not being an independent journalist, not being neutral, not reporting what he sees, just kind of being extremely favorable to John Shell and Kaz Daughtry and reporting on the Khaki Pants unit, reporting on them. It's not normal behavior for a journalist, especially to button up to the police department, especially for him, who was in complete opposition to the police department. About a year prior to this, we even spoke to him on X Spaces where he was bashing the police department. Amongst lawsuits that he has, so numerous interactions he has had, and he's put the police department in a negative light. So I just want to say, I agree with you, John. We say this all the time. I don't believe in coincidence at all. So at the same time that he's going on this rant, he sounds like a complete mental patient. He sounds totally unhinged as he has an interaction with myself and John and Sal Greco. At the same time, our account is locked. So again, there's absolutely no coincidence. But what I say to Viral News, or Lio Press, whatever you want to call them, is have the balls and have the guts to say, hey, I did this. I locked your account. And I mean, he's threatened us with copyright infringement. It's absolutely not a copyright infringement. And he said, I'm going to sue. So if you're going to sue, just do it already. Just do it. He said, and he even said to John, F you, pay me. Okay, well, let's see. Put your money where your mouth is. At the same token, saying that we threatened him, absolutely not. We didn't threaten him. I mean, listen, he's acting like a complete child, trying to get us trying to hook us, which we're not going to. All right, we'll have a debate, but he's not going to hook us. We're not going to say anything stupid. We really don't care, and I think we paid him too much mind and gave him way too much airtime as it is. Just a complete waste of time, honestly. But again, this started because I had asked him, are you really still an independent journalist? Are you the deputy commissioner of public information for the NYPD? Because it's starting to seem that way with the relationship that you have with Kaz Daughtry and John Shell. It seems that they're possibly paying you, or you're getting paid with complete access while everyone else is being shut out. Everyone else is getting limited access. Maybe they're giving him some type of uncompensated or compensated security. Sal Greco knows what uncompensated security is. He was charged with that when he was wrongfully terminated. So maybe he's getting some type of security from the police department when he goes to his migrant shelters. At the same token, he's attacking this podcast, calling myself and John liars. Why would he do that? Again, I don't believe in coincidence. He's doing that because John Shell and Kaz Daughtry have been trying to suppress this podcast since the inception of this podcast. And clearly, he's having an unprofessional relationship with John Shell and Kaz Daughtry and the rest of the upper echelon at this point. It's not a good look for an independent journalist. And I think when this ship goes down, he's going to go down with the ship also. As you said, John, he's going to be playing the violin. I think he's already playing the violin. I think at this point, we see desperate times. We see desperate measures. So here's a great point. We get to see Sal Greco talk about Viral News, and he's got a great nickname for him. Let's get into it, brother.
This made my morning, so I got a good laugh while I was brushing my teeth this morning. Here we go. You ready?
My way back to South Florida, I was viciously attacked on X by someone we're going to call them a miscreant cretin who looks like, I don't know what to say, a villain from the Muppets. And they were attacking me with libelous claims, frivolous conjecture. But I'll spare you the story here because I posted a little bit about this person, and it's quite alarming what this person is involved in because it looks like they're very chummy with the Eric Adams administration. And speak my way back to.
So that made my morning a villainous Muppet. That's I couldn't stop laughing. That was hysterical.
I'm sure he's going to come back with some slander, some smear campaign today. Our accounts will be locked. I could care less. You know what? Honestly, when it comes to Viral News, I could care less. If our accounts get locked for a couple days, so be it. It happened with my Instagram. I couldn't collaborate for about 2 months because of a post. It is what it is. We'll get our information out through the podcast if we have to. We're not going to take to anybody's threats. We're not going to back down, especially from someone who's, looks like a little boy. So who lives with his mother in his mommy's basement.
No, it's absolutely ridiculous. It's the whole thing. The whole thing is the kid. These are his people right here. These are his people. So yesterday, Brooklyn, Rebecca Weiner, deputy commissioner counterterrorism, these little anarchists that he used to roll around with, they go to her house. Again, I don't know why any members of the NYPD or homes are accessible to anyone. I'm not even going to play the volume because I don't even want to hear these little rats. But this is what they're doing now. They're showing up at not only the homes of police officers, they're showing up at the homes of the appointed the deputy commissioners as well. I mean, it's a beautiful home she has. Neighbors shouldn't have to deal with that. She shouldn't have to deal with that. I mean, this to me is absolute insanity. We saw what they did with the cop where they were kicking the door. This is very close to that. Now, obviously people can protest, but how they have your address and dox you online is a different point. Now they're blocking entrance to your home. This could go bad really quickly if we allow this. And again, I've been asking since last October 7th, and here we are on October 8th. When are the organizers and funders of these illegal actions going to be identified and charged properly? So now I don't believe they kicked her door. I don't believe they did anything but protest outside her home, but they did dox her. So absolutely wrong, absolutely disgusting. If this is allowed to fester, I mean, I could see situations getting much worse. Like we said over a year ago, if we allow them to go to officers' home and threaten and intimidate officers, that is an easy road for corruption in the NYPD, not because the rank and file of the NYPD are actually corrupt, but because they fear for the life and safety of their families. And obviously, it would not obviously anybody that had to deal with this situation where people are just showing up to your home should, if you're not fearing for your safety and the safety of your family, you're not paying attention to who these people are and what they're saying.
Make no mistake about it. This is an act of terrorism. When you start to show up to the homes of police officers and the homes of commissioners, and the intention is there to intimidate and cause coercion, to change their political ideology, change their stance on things, and to cause fear. That is, in fact, an act of terrorism, because that's what terrorism is. It's coercion, it's intimidation, causing fear and alarm to change your political ideology, to change your stance and change the manner in which you move, is clearly an act of terrorism. And John and I have spoke about this numerous times in the podcast. We've actually been talking about this for 2 years. The 58 and other opportunities of potential transparency, what we hear, of exposure to the public and police officers' information, is a gateway for corruption. Absolutely. Because it can come a time where we have organizations just like this approach police officers, say, hey, listen, you're here at work all day. We know where you live. We know your family. We know what time your kid leaves for school. And that could be intimidating in itself and cause a police officer to be probed and eventually do some stuff that's corrupt because they have to protect their family. Absolutely. I want to say thank you, by the way. Not in the squad. Looks like a new friend and listen to the podcast. Thank you so much. $10 to the podcast. We appreciate. Thank you so much for dipping in your pocket. Absolutely. I do believe that is an act of terrorism. And the fact that it's not being treated in that manner is a problem. And that's why we need another reason why we need an overhaul in leadership of the police department. We have to take a strong stance and find out exactly who's in charge of these protests, who's in charge of gathering crowds to police officers' homes, who's doxing them. We have to find out the root cause of these issues, and we need to cut them off because this is an act of terrorism. Make no mistake about it. So here we are. Let's switch gears again. We put this out yesterday, but I think it's a good thing to look at again. It's who's left in the Eric Adams administration. Who's resigned and raided, who's indicted. I mean, the roster just keeps going on. John, what are your thoughts?
I mean, so this thing was that we put this out yesterday, and it was outdated almost immediately after we put it out, right? Because then Phil Banks resigned. Then Winnie Greco resigned, right? So you could add Phil Banks to raided and resigned. You could add Winnie Greco to raided and resigned. You could add Abba Razanov, or how do you ever say her name? The liaison of Turkish affair, into raided and terminated. So she was actually terminated by the administration. So it's funny that like before you even get these things out in the middle of the night, they're already outdated. So I mean, and again, it was missing a lot of people that we spoke of on here that also left in this administration or have been raided, indicted, or have resigned or been terminated. So I mean, it just shows you what's happening around. The dominoes are falling. The Adams administration is a house of cards. We should have Stephanie Liggio joining us in a minute. She is a candidate for Assembly District 83. She's running against the godfather or the father of bail reform, the Speaker of the Assembly, Carl Hastie. Carl Hastie should be noted. He hasn't said a word about anything. We haven't heard him speak about a seated police commissioner resigning. We haven't heard him say anything about the mayor being indicted. We haven't heard him say anything around all of this stuff, but he had a lot to say in 2020 about public safety. He had a lot to say about the police department the last 3-4 years. But now all of a sudden he's got nothing to say. Weird. Very strange times we're living in. So, you know, we'll once Stephanie gets with us, we'll bring her up to the stage so you guys can see her, run through her platform, and then get to know her. It's important that we're supporting these candidates, especially the candidates that aren't well known and the candidates that are going up against these monsters like Carl Hastie. And I don't mean Carl Hastie's a monster. He is, by his policies, a monster, but just the fact that he is the Speaker of the House. He is anything that you've seen come out of that assembly that you hate, he's pushed forward. He's part of the reason, and it's people like that that need to be removed from office. And how we're going to remove them from office? We're going to put candidates, common sense candidates in there. So when she comes, you know, pay attention to what she's going to say, and then do us a favor, help her out. But yeah, I mean, dude, it's a house of cards. It's a complete house of cards.
MD, thank you so much. I guess another new friend and listen to the podcast. Thank you so much. Name I haven't seen before. Great show, guys. Admin dropping like flies. Absolutely. You know, I understand when you're in a leadership position that you're not going to be flawless. Sometimes you will make mistakes, right? It can happen, right? You're in a leadership position. Let's say you're Eric Adams, you have the administration, and let's say you do make a bad appointment. But when every appointment is either under resignation or raided or terminated or indicted or both or all the above, we have a legit problem. And again, it starts from the head. The fact that we have not seen people stomp their feet and say Eric Adams needs to go. We need the people to say Eric Adams is responsible for this failure. It's an epic fail right now. It's an epic fail. And this could have some real effects on the New York City taxpayer. And that's the problem. It's not just something that's isolated towards this administration. The administration affects everything right now. Eric Adams is the mayor of New York City, the most iconic city in the entire world. And the political structure of New York City is far different than other cities where maybe you could cut out a portion with an elected official and replace them. But when it comes to New York City, we have 5 counties that make up the city. And Eric Adams is in charge of all these appointments. He's in charge of the police department, he's in charge of the fire department, he's in charge of sanitation, he's in charge of all these deputy mayors. He's responsible for everything. So this is a complete epic fail, and it can have some real burdensome residual results because of these appointments and what's going on right now. How could the city properly run when there's no one left? Eric Adams can't do this job by himself. He wasn't doing it before. He's too busy out partying with his nightlife. How could he do this job by himself? It's right now. It's completely going on autopilot. It's a rudderless ship, and I mean, it really is the Titanic when we talk about it. I feel sorry for New York City right now. Is ultimately paying the price for low votership, for voter apathy, and I hope and I do believe that sometimes things have to get worse before they get better. Maybe things are so bad right now with this appointment, and possibly would Jumaane Williams be worse? I don't know, but if it is worse, well, you know what? Then hopefully people get out there and vote.
Yeah, that's the whole thing, you know. And you know, everyone's like, oh, the pro. Just to go back on what's going on with Deputy Commissioner Weiner, like her home being protested in front of. I agree with you that these people are domestic terrorists, but they've done a lot worse than just that, and they haven't been charged properly. They've had planned and coordinated shutdowns of critical infrastructure in New York City, bridges, tunnels, subway cars. They've stopped people from moving in traffic. They attacked and assaulted people for absolutely no reason. They destroyed businesses. I mean, you name it. These people have done it. And, unfortunately, you reap what you sow. Right? You reap what you sow. When we just sit there and like, oh, we can't do anything. They're students. We're waiting for a letter from the university. Oh, we're waiting for this. You created this environment. So are they protesters or are they domestic terrorists? It's a great question. I say that they're domestic terrorists, but they don't have a record to prove that. The only thing that they've ever received is the disorderly conduct summonses for their behavior, for shutting down bridges and tunnels, planned, coordinated, funded efforts. And the organizers of those events are completely allowed to act with impunity. So, I hear what you're saying, and I agree with you, but it's not documented that they are. And then when they do show up at your house and they're not doing anything that they've done in the past, and they're just yelling and screaming, I mean, it is what it is at this point. You know what I mean? This is what you've created. You've put this hands-off policing model where we've done nothing. We're gonna have Stephanie Liggio join us in just a second. Stephanie, if you could turn your camera on, please, before we bring you up to the screen. And then we'll get into this after we speak with Stephanie, where Rana Abasava is believed to be cooperating with the feds, and she was fired while Banks and Winnie Greco have resigned. Eric, what do you think about the Weiner situation? Did she reap what she sowed?
Absolutely. I love sometimes when we ask questions we know the answer. Absolutely. I mean, again, this administration is just, I can't believe that we're at this point that the entire house of cards has come down crawling. Absolutely. It's insane that we're even at this point that we don't have the people stomping their feet saying, look at everything that's happening here. How can this city actually continue on? I just don't even see it. It really is on autopilot right now. And we're paying for it. Thank you, Eric Adams. That's what everybody should be saying. Thank you, Eric Adams. But instead, Eric Adams saying, I did this for you. We'll gaslight it.
Yeah. So Banger that said, could we talk about the 50A contact info? And Nighthawk says 50A doesn't give you your home address. That's the cop on the inside looking people up using departmental tools to find out whose home address. Unfortunately, that's exactly what it is. Now, listen, we're not fans of 50A, but all it's given is your name and your shield number. Same way that we're not on the firearm registry as law enforcement, our home addresses shouldn't be able to be found anywhere. Or your home address should be scrubbed from the internet. Now, I wasn't a fan of 50A. Carl Hasty was a fan of 50A. Andrew Cuomo was a fan of 50A. This entire upper echelon in the NYPD was a fan of 50A. And now it's being used directly against him. So if we could, is 50A to blame? Yes and no. I mean, like I said, when I was a cop, everyone and their mother knew where I lived. I grew up in South Brooklyn and Staten Island, and I arrested perps in South Brooklyn and Staten Island. And they all knew me because I hung out in the park and I wasn't a shy kid. So everyone knew who the hell I was, knew where I lived, where I moved, where I hung out. And the reason that nobody bothered me, again, I said, it's not because I'm a tough guy. It's because they were afraid of the consequences if they did something to me, because I was a cop. And they knew that the NYPD would come out in full force, and they knew there would be ramifications for dealing with that. And now they don't feel that. They don't feel there's going to be any consequences for showing up at a cop's home or trying to intimidate a cop, or possibly even when they assault cops, there's no consequences.
I have a problem with the 50A. I have a huge problem with it. Supposedly it was meant to be for accountability and transparency, right? And clearly we could see it was not used in that manner at all. 50A was meant, honestly, just to be part of a smear campaign. I agree. Can you access someone's personalized information from the 50A when it comes to home address and stuff? No, but it does put a target on someone's back, and it makes them unattractable in their law enforcement career. It deteriorates them from their law enforcement career, which we see particularly weaponized by the CCRB. But what does it also do? It affects your afterlife of the NYPD. It affects on how attractive you may be to other places of employment or just in life, right? I said if you're I'll use myself as example. You know, I'm married, thank God. You know, but if you're a single guy and you're the most complained cop, and you know, rightfully so with the internet today, and you meet a woman and you're going to go on a date, she's most likely going to type in your name and see if there's anything out there about you, and she's going to see your 50A, and if she doesn't have any context and doesn't, you know, if she doesn't have fathers or she wasn't law enforcement herself, if she doesn't come from a deity of law enforcement and doesn't understand, or maybe she has leftist ideologies, maybe you don't know her political stance at this point, she might say, oh my God, this person's a monster, because the 50A has been weaponized to deteriorate you, and the CCRB has riddled your name with complaints, and some are substantiated, some are exonerated, but yet that's there, or even unfounded. So the 50A is meant to be a smear campaign. I almost compare it to being a sex offender. You know, it's something, it's a stain on your life, whether you're convicted of it or not, that you can't even retract from it. It's actually worse than being a sex offender. At least a sex offender was actually found guilty and they're put on a registry. But if you're attacked by the Civilian Complaint Review Board, you don't have to have any complaints ever substantiated. If they're exonerated or if they're unfounded, it's still on your record as allegations. And if you don't comb through and actually look to see the actual results, you just get what's on the surface. And most people don't comb through. They look at the titles when it comes to a report or a newspaper. And that's enough just to smear your name. So it's meant to smear a cop. It's meant to deteriorate and destroy their life. That's what it's meant for.
Yeah, absolutely, dude. That's exactly what it is. Juju wants to know why we're only interviewing Republican candidates. Juju, I've had several Democrats reach out and ask to come on the show, and with open arms, we said, absolutely, you let us know. We'll work it out. We'll even do it for your schedule. And guess what? They never came back around. So it's not my fault who wants to come on. Only the brave come on the show. I've said it numerous times. So, you know, I don't know why they're not coming on, but they're not. And, you know, I just, you know, it is what it is. And if Carl Hastie wants to come on the show, he's more than welcome to. But for whatever reason, Carl Hastie's a coward, and the rest of the elected are cowards, and they don't want to come on the show. So I don't know what it is. So we're gonna bring Stephanie Liggio up. Like I said, she is running for Assembly District 83 out in Eric's favorite borough, the Bronx. It's if I had to list it on boroughs, it's gonna be ahead of Queens, but that's it. You know. But all right, ladies and gentlemen, bringing up Stephanie Liggio. Stephanie,
Good
welcome.
morning, guys.
Hey, Stephanie, how are you? Nice to meet you.
Good to see you, Eric. Thank you. Thank you, John, for having me.
Oh, yeah. It's a pleasure to have you. Thank you so much for coming on.
My pleasure.
Absolutely.
My pleasure. I've heard that a lot. I've heard thank you for running for office, going through the Bronx. I think people are ready for a choice, and there hasn't really been a choice for this district in a long time. And it's refreshing to a lot of people to have someone running for office.
Absolutely. So, Stephanie, your mic's a little grainy. I'm getting a lot of feedback.
Yeah, that's. I had to go on my old laptop because my new laptop, the camera didn't want to work, and I couldn't figure it out.
All right. So this is what I'm going to do. I'm going to mute you while we're talking, and then I'm going to unmute you when you go, so we don't get the feedback. So, if you could just run us through your platform real quick and just tell the audience a little bit about your opponent, Carl Hastie.
My platform is the Common Sense Contract with New York, which was promoted from Project Civica. So we have these 7 pledges that were focus groups, and it's all of the criteria that government should be focused on. It's the bail reform bill and crime in New York City. In New York State, because people forget that Rochester is as bad as New York when it comes to a murder rate. And then there is also the statutory state issue, which was done through an executive fiat and not done through the legislature. And it's education, energy perspective, the budget, and the economy, because that goes hand in hand. And it's personal freedoms and medical mandates, because it all wraps up into the same. What role does government have in our lives, and where is that delineated line? Because we have to be responsible for ourselves. So where is that line, and how definitive do we make that line? And that's what we have to look at now, because we're on the verge. New York is the microcosm of what will happen at the national level if Kamala and Walz really do get into office. So you can just look at New York State and say all of the policies that are affected here would happen nationally. So if anyone wants to know what a Kamala Harris America would look like, just look at New York. This is it right here. So everything that we're looking at, we need citizens across the country need to draw the line and say, government needs to make sure A, B, C, and D. You can't have education without parents at the table understanding the curriculum and knowing what's going on in the classroom. You can't have an energy policy without having professionals. Running for office, what do I know about energy? I call my friend who worked in the energy sector. Sarah, what do you think of this? Sarah, what do you think of that? And she'll be honest with me. She'll say, well, I love clean energy, but you're right. The new nuclear technology is cleaner burning and it's more efficient. So why not implement a newer, cleaner technology in that way? Instead of asking everyone to put these new systems on their home that are heating and cooling, but it's on the grid that you haven't upgraded in decades. So that's where I'm at. It's the Common Sense Contract with New York. It's promoted by Project Civica. It's a platform that many of the candidates are signing on to. We want this one platform for everyone so that when we get to Albany, when we flip the New York State Senate, and when we win additional seats in the Assembly, we can all come together and say, all right, these are the 7 issues that the people of New York State, they came out, they voted for. This is what's front of mind for them. This is what we have to work on first and foremost.
Stephanie from the Bronx. Listen, I have a dear love for the Bronx. I worked in the Bronx for almost a decade. I lived in the Bronx for almost a decade, so I know the Bronx very well. And I love what you're saying here. What you're talking about is what's on a. We talk about globalism, right? Well, especially when we talk about America. New York is iconic, and we see what's happened in New York mirrored in the entire country, and especially we see it on the level of law enforcement. John and I have built this network throughout the entire country right now, where we speak to police officers and correctional officers throughout the entire country, other cops that have turned podcasters, and their message mirrors our message. What's happening in LA is the same thing that's happening in New York. So for public safety purposes, let's get to that, right? Because Carl Hastie was talking about public safety in 2020 during COVID. We don't hear much of it now because of the riddled Eric Adams administration. So what would be your first order of business when it comes to public safety, and what conversations may you have with the NYPD to move forward with public safety?
Let's see, first of all, who's going to be in charge of the NYPD and what's going to happen with the mayor. It has to be an honest conversation with all stakeholders at the table. So we need the police officers who are actually on patrol giving us the feedback, but so that we know what material they need and what training they need. I was talking with a couple of people yesterday. They had no idea what the training was that NYPD goes through. You know what? Why can't the citizens get a pseudo training so that we understand how to work with our police department? Let's bring the community leaders to the table to talk about what they will do and how they will go into the housing communities. I met some young men last week who wanted to open a community center because the YMCA that was built on our tax dollars is $50 a month, and no one in the housing community can afford $50 a month to go to the YMCA. So they want to open a community center. And I'm like, I'm all for it. Let's do it. Or let's find a way to make that YMCA a donation, or our tax dollars already paid for it, so why do we have to pay an additional fee? I don't know, find sponsors. Let's do something like that to get our kids off of the street so that future criminals are not in the making. And let's work with the community leaders and the patrol guys who know what's going on and who know who the actors are on the streets. A large part of what's going on now is the migrant crisis. And I heard at a community board meeting where people are scared. With the autumn solstice, we're getting darker earlier, and these migrants know who's calling 911, who's putting in the complaints. They know which houses have the people that are watching. And it's just going to get to a point where it's dark at 4:30 in the afternoon. They're coming off the subway from work at 5:30, and they're not going to feel safe. There's no foot patrol in the area for them. And that's our first and foremost. Our people need to be safe and healthy. How do we do that? So we have to figure out a way to make sure that these communities are safe and that they're getting the patrol that they need.
Stephanie, what areas does Assembly District 83 cover, and what would you say about the crime in that area, in that district? Like, what are, I know you have your 7 principles, but what would you list as the top in your Assembly District as the problem amongst your constituents?
Crime. Crime is the first problem for everyone here. Crime and inflation, which was caused by, energy costs and prolonged lockdowns from COVID. So, and job opportunity. People don't have job opportunities here. There's no development. Every development that's coming into the area is NYCHA. Where's the $1 million condos that you built in Williamsbridge? Why won't you bring that to Wakefield? This is the most beautiful part of the Bronx. It was always historically the nicest area. And all of a sudden, oh, no, just NYCHA and shelters. That's what we're going to bring to the Bronx. That's all you need. So we cover Wakefield, but it's interesting because when you look at the interactive map on Mr. Hasty's website, part of Wakefield is cut out, and it's a very interesting part, and that goes to Donahue. So there's Wakefield, and then there's Baychester area, and then it's Williamsbridge and Eastchester, not the Westchester, Eastchester Road, that part of the Bronx where Heffen Park is. Beautiful, beautiful park, and I was over there the other day, and I was like, I don't have this in Wakefield. They got pickleball courts, and you can play soccer over here. They got a pool. I said, I don't have that in the Northeast Bronx. This is like more central, and I was like, wow, that's interesting.
I think you're right. I think Wakefield is a great spot. It's actually a great location. It borders Westchester, and you're right by the highway there. It's a great spot. I think it would be a great spot for real estate. I think you put a great point on that. You talk about a lot of great things. Inflation, which is, I think it's a global problem. Throughout the entire country. I think there's a lot to blame with the Biden administration. I think there's a correlation to crime also. So of course, crime is definitely a problem there. So with crime being a problem, especially you talk about, you're not seeing foot patrols and you're not seeing the presence of the police department, and we have a diminished police department. So, what do you think we could do? What do you see the police department? Do you support? Because a presence is important, but if we don't have the support, do you support? Because I always talk about intrusive police work. Intrusive police work, I believe, is the bedrock to keeping neighborhoods safe. That ultimately is the foundation and a baseline for policing. Do you support intrusive type policing, which is basically the broken window style policing, not just foot patrols, but going out there and supporting our police officers to be intrusive, to actually engage the public to stop crime?
The sad part of it is we're at the point now where Giuliani had come into office in the 90s. We're mirroring that right now. So we're going to have to go back to the broken windows policy for a short period of time to get the city streets cleaned up and to get everyone to feel safe again. But again, a large part of that is this unlawful migrant situation. So if we can clear out the unlawful migrants and get them out of the streets, you are going to find that our crime numbers probably aren't that ridiculous. And a lot of the crime is coming from lack of opportunity. There's a supermarket owner who had mentioned to me, Carlos said, if people come in for a sandwich, if they're looking to feed themselves, we'll help them. We'll give them a job for a day. We'll give them a sandwich. But they're stealing detergent to sell it on the street to go get drugs. So what is the theft for, and what is the root cause of it? And we'll never understand fully, because for every criminal, it's a different issue. But if you're selling it for drugs, these methadone clinics are proven to not work. So we have to work with community. These NGOs, I think, are not serving us, and there needs to be, for any law that we pass, there has to be, the return on investment theory. So what's the return on this law? Is it being effective? We need a 6 month. We need a 6 month look at and a year look back and say, okay, is this law effective for the citizens? And if it's not, let's roll it back. We need to do that with NGOs. Is the tax dollar being used efficiently with these NGO programs? Are they helping people who are on bail reform and helping them be acclimated within the community? Or should we go back to allowing the family to take their family members back, and with family discipline and family tradition, and get them back on the right road? And are these methadone clinics functioning for people who had an addiction issue? Or is there another type of service that we can provide? I met a lady at a Salvation Army one day who had worked with drug crisis situations for a long, long time, and she's retired. But she said when they took the Christian effect away from rehabbing patients, that's when it started being a problem. She said, and I think that's why they target Mike Lindell, because of his rehab facility is Christian based. Why is it that the Christian value is not being expressed in treatment when it is effective and when it does help people find their journey, their road that they're supposed to travel aside from addiction? Did I answer the question? I think I did.
Yeah, you answered it. Thank you. So one question for you. What do you think about the mess that's going on in City Hall right now? And what do you think about your opponent not uttering a single word about a seated police commissioner, a mayor who's been a seated police commissioner resigning, a mayor who's been indicted, and almost 26 people in his administration either being raided, resigned, or fired? What are your thoughts of that? I understand that you're in the assembly, you're vying for a seat in the assembly, and it's a state level. But I think you agree. So go, and you've said it. So goes New York. So goes the country. So goes the world, and the New York City. So I think it's you have some type of oversight responsibility in the city. What are your thoughts surrounding around that? And what are your thoughts about your opponent not uttering a single word about this?
So in America, we are innocent until proven guilty. That's first and foremost. And I wish George Santos wasn't expelled from Congress until he was proven guilty, or at least put in his guilty plea. But with that said, this is our tax dollars in question now. How many more people have to be indicted before we say, well, what's going to happen in New York City? We're, with the lack of a patrol, with no leadership, that leaves the middle management. Where are they? Are they raising their hand to say, you know what, let's take over for this. Let's push everyone aside and let's us say, we did foot patrol where we said we understand what management isn't doing and what needs to be done. Step forward. Tell the people what you need and we'll support you. But I haven't heard anyone, even in middle management, say this is the solution for New York City. Carl Hastie has not even responded, I think, yet to having a debate with me. So I'm not saying I know everything about every issue, and he's been in the assembly for 20 plus years. Have a debate with me. I'm just a girl from the Bronx. I just want to have a conversation so that the people can see what their choices side by side. And I think the solutions will come from the public, from the people. And representative government is supposed to go to the people for the solutions that they want us to execute. And that's my role. I've always worked in service. I continue to work in service, not in law enforcement, not in public. I was in the private sector, but I'm happy to do my share and serve 2 years. I'll commit to 2 years to go to Albany and make effective changes that will be better. I understand that the governor has the ability to rein in a city or a mayor that is not working for the state. And I know that during COVID, a lot of people thought Cuomo was going to take de Blasio out because they were not getting along, playing nice in the playpen. But didn't happen. So it'll be interesting to see if Governor Hochul puts her foot forward to try to take control of New York City. I don't know if she would know how to manage New York City. I would like to see the borough presidents step up and take care of their own boroughs. This is what their role is, to look out for their borough. We'd like to see more action from them. We need to remember that next year, 2025, is elections for city council, New York City mayor, and the borough presidents. So New York City, wake up. 30% of people come out to vote. That's how you have a Mayor Adams. 750,000 people out of 8 million voted for him. The city has a second migrant crisis, which is people fleeing. As John could tell you firsthand, people will continue to leave New York. They will just sell their homes to any investor who's willing to buy it, who's going to rent it out to the government to put any migrant in there. So when we have more people selling, investors buying, you're going to have an upside down population. So there'll be less people paying into the taxes. So guess what? You'll end up only paying more taxes. That's the situation. It's the absolute truth.
Eric, before you go, Sheena Wright just resigned. Shocking.
No, I know. My phone has been blowing up. I was just saying the same thing, and our friends and listeners have been putting in the comments. No shocker right there. Sure enough, here we go. Here's another resignation, Stephanie. Listen, Stephanie, before you go, we know you got a busy day. Your feet are hitting the ground. I want to thank you for coming on here, and thank you for answering these questions. I just want to ask you, because this is really a key point that we speak about constantly, and it's voter apathy. And you just mentioned it. Mayor Eric Adams got in office because of voter apathy. 400,000 votes in a primary of a city of 8.5 million people. So what is your message to people, not just in your district, but what is your message to New York City residents? What is your message to get them out there? How do you incentivize them to get out there and vote? Because we're suffering from voter apathy. We need to bring this back to the people, and the people have to make the decision who's going to be elected, who's going to run this city. So what is your message to the people before you go today? I want to thank you. What is your message? How do we incentivize them to get out of their homes, get out of work, and go vote?
The incentive is you can cause change. You can affect change. 2022, 6 million people stayed home. Our governor won her position with the minority vote. 49% of New York State voted for Governor Hochul in the affirmative. So she had the majority of the 49%. That's still the minority vote. 51% of people decided to say, let the minority decide for me. So I want to empower every single New Yorker. Pick up your phone, text 5 people, and tell them to text 5 people. What's our plan for getting out to vote? What's our plan for helping our seniors getting out to vote? We have early voting October 26th through November 3rd. And then you have election day, November 5th, 6 a.m. to 9 p.m. When you're in line, they have to allow you to vote. If you have your mail ballot, I implore you, do not put it in the mail. Put it in the box at early voting, or go to the Board of Elections, or hand it in somewhere. I don't trust the mail, me personally. Our mail persons I have a respect for, having canvassed the neighborhood and going up all of these steps for these homes. It's not an easy job, but it's not their responsibility, and it's not chain of custody. So I implore everyone, know that you are empowered. This is your voice. We're either going to slip further into communism across the country, and within New York State specifically, without that majority vote. So that's what I tell people when I speak with them every day, that we have the power. You can also use Project Civica as partnered with TP Action. They have an app. So when you're sitting on your couch, you don't want to go out, you don't want to canvas, you sit on your couch, you can open the TP Action app. You can text message people, you can call people, you can grab postcards. Project Civica has a postcard campaign. You can grab some postcards and just sit there and write out some postcards while you're watching New York's Finest and put those out in the mail. There's many different ways that you can affect change. Go to projectcivica.org. You can work with us directly within your community, and we can help you build a plan so that you can Goya, get off your couch. Well, get off your.
Hey, one more question. I just want to have a little fun. You know, you're a Bronx girl. Like I said, I lived there almost a decade. One thing I miss about the Bronx is good food. What's your favorite restaurant in the Bronx?
It's Roberto's, hands down.
Good choice. Good choice right there. Outstanding. Maybe we'll meet up one day at Roberto's. Outstanding. Maybe we'll meet up at Casa Frito. Sal Greco will like that.
That's going to be our new podcast studio. Stephanie, before you go, just do us a favor. Could you just let everybody know where we could find you, how we could donate to your campaign? And if you could just leave us, have you received any help from any political organizations during your campaign?
My website is forthepeople.com, forthepeople.com. You'll see my recent Substack also was picked up by the Apple Gazette, and it is written about New York's apathy in voting and getting out the vote. I've received minimal assistance. I think there'll be robocalls going out from the Republican Party on my behalf. Anyone who doesn't have money to donate, and if you want to come over to the Bronx and help me canvass the neighborhood and knock doors or stand on the street and just talk to people, I am absolutely willing to take on volunteers. That's more important than money in this home stretch. It's actually getting to the people and having those conversations. So,
and then just what's your social media handles and things so we can follow you on?
I believe it's my Instagram is S_Ligio_AD83. And then I think my Twitter is the same. And then it's just to look up Stephanie Ligio on Facebook.
All right, awesome. Listen, we appreciate you coming on, and we wish you luck. And you know, let's take Call Hasty out. Let's get a new speaker. Get the speaker out. Thank you for coming on, and we'll speak soon. If you need anything, let us know. Thank you,
Stephanie. Take care. Nice to meet you. Thank you. Hey,
all right.
Listen, I want to say thank you, Cal Fire Rescue, $4.99 to the podcast. I am so sad when Juju number 3 and number 7 leave due to an incarceration issue. Who will run? The corruption center is Kazoo Rev Daughtry's bastard boy. Hey, good friend, and listen to the podcast. Thank you so much. And YouTube user, $20 on the podcast. Thank you so much, brother. Outstanding. Thanks for being a friend and listening to us. Here's another one, Thomas Joyce. Thank you so much, Thomas Joyce. Huge donation, $100, and another $100 going to Stephanie. Wow, thank you so much, Thomas Joyce. We appreciate that. Outstanding. Thank you. Good morning to you.
Thank you, sir. Appreciate all you guys, even the anonymous guy, YouTube user. Come on, make a handle. Don't worry about it. Don't worry. Don't be afraid of the job. Don't be afraid. Don't let them control your life anymore. That's it. So
time to fight back. Squeaky wheel against the oil.
Absolutely. So yeah, thank you, Thomas Joyce. Thank you to everyone who donated. Very generous, Tom. Like we said, your support on here is more than enough. So we appreciate you, all of you guys. So we just had Sheena Wright, deputy mayor of Eric Adams, his first deputy mayor, step down. Again, is just real quick before we go on the next topic. Now that we see all of these, could he last? Could, in your opinion, do you think Eric Adams could last out, or is Kathy Hochul making him the executioner? You're going to be the executioner before you step down. You're going to get rid of all these people before you go. What's your opinion today? Obviously, listen, opinions are opinions. We're going to change this stuff. We're not going to be right about things because this is all in the background. And, we've been wrong before. We mainly been right. I mean, but what are you thinking now?
Yeah, sometimes I hope that we're not right when certain things we call out, because we want the best for the police department. We want the best for New York City. But unfortunately, most of the stuff we call out is right because we just clearly could see it. I mean, it's so obvious. It's in front of our faces. But we said it earlier in this episode. We said it earlier in the show. What we see right now is in reverse order. We're taking out all the components, but we're not taking out the leadership. I think Kathy Hochul, I'm going to say it again, I think she's scared because of the race card to actually say that she took out Eric Adams. I'm sure the conversation is being had, like, listen, you need to go. But I don't think she's going to publicly say it. This is completely in reverse order. We see all the subordinates on their way out, but the leadership is still there. Eric Adams, honestly, he's crazy. He's crazy. He's not going out unless he's kicking and screaming. Honestly, I mean, I have to be honest. I toss it up. Some days I look at it, I'm like, wow, I guess he's going to resign. And then some days like, well, this guy isn't going anywhere because we don't know who is Eric Adams. I mean, he's still smiling. How can he be smiling? It's not normal. This is not normal behavior. He needs to go, but is he going to go at this point? I still think he's going to be the last man standing. I think he's enjoying this. I think he wants to push Kathy Hochul and say, you know what? You want me removed? Go ahead. Remove me. And then he can say, look, that's what he wants. He wants it. Look, they removed a black man. That's what he wants to say. I was out there doing this for you. Look what they did to a black administration. That's what he's going to say. This is going to completely fall on the race card. There's no doubt in my mind. Here we go. Nighthawk 13666. Not the race card. Eric Hochul is dirty like Adams. He has dirt on her from Consfrito days. Very true. Very true. Es Sal Greco.
Yeah, I don't know. I think he's done, man. I think he's done. I think these are the last days of Eric Adams. He's coming shortly. He doesn't have many people left. I think you're going to see some NYPD people step down coming in the next week. I don't think anybody can last under this. His legs have left, his arms has left, his torso has left. I just don't see it. I can't see it lasting.
But that's what I'm saying, John. He's still smiling. It's insane. He's smiling. How can he be smiling?
Rich OG says, good morning, guys. He donated $20 to the podcast. Rich, thank you, brother. We appreciate it. So, all right, so let's see. This comes out, obviously this is outdated news now because now we actually have Sheena Wright who stepped down as well. So this was coming out from NBC. Let's see what the corporate media has to say about the Eric Adams administration. I haven't watched this. I got a few other things to bring in after this. But let's see what they're saying. And again, we just had his first deputy mayor resign. So let's see what they're saying. City Hall turmoil. Here we go.
Trio of new resignations in the embattled Adams administration. Deputy Mayor of Public Safety Philip Banks among them.
He is one of the mayor's top aides who had their electronics seized in a federal investigation, and he is one of several administrators leaving their city hall jobs in recent weeks. Chief investigative reporter Jonathan Dienst has the latest.
Chuck, Natalie, Deputy Mayor Phil Banks resigned, also handing in her papers, Asian Affairs Liaison Winnie Greco, who has been under FBI scrutiny for months. Through her lawyer, she denies any wrongdoing. Also, one controversial aide, Rana Abasova, who is linked to the federal indictment of Mayor Adams, she was officially terminated today, according to one source familiar with the matter. After first being suspended, City Hall aide Rana Abasova has now been fired, according to a source familiar with the matter. Abasova, who is now believed to be cooperating with the feds, had been accused of lying about the mayor and the alleged fundraising scheme involving Turkey. Her lawyer did not return an immediate request for comment. This as Asian Affairs Liaison Winnie Greco
AAPI
has resigned. The FBI searched Greco's home in connection with questions about improper fundraising and her possible ties to Chinese communist officials or their associates. She has not commented. These departures come after Deputy Mayor for Public Safety Phil Banks resigned on Sunday amid the ongoing corruption investigations into City Hall. Banks had his cell phone seized by the FBI on September 4th, and questions continue about whether his brother Terrence Banks, a consultant, received any special treatment for his clients when it came to the awarding of city contracts. The mayor spoke about Phil Banks' resignation earlier during a New York One appearance.
He reached out to me and stated, Eric, I'm looking to move on, and this is a good time to do so.
Banks' resignation comes as another Banks brother, Schools Chancellor David Banks, also announced he is leaving his post. The school's chancellor also had his cell phone seized by the FBI. He has denied any wrongdoing. As deputy mayor for public safety, Phil Banks helped oversee the NYPD. This is the second time he's leaving city government under a cloud. In 2014, Banks abruptly left as chief of department as federal prosecutors labeled him an unindicted co-conspirator in a bribery scandal during the de Blasio administration. Banks was not criminally charged, but two Brooklyn businessmen who tried to influence Banks did go to prison on corruption-related charges. As for the current federal investigations, so far only Mayor Adams has been charged. Adams has pleaded not guilty. Prosecutors have said additional charges and criminal cases could be coming. Reached by phone, Phil Banks' high-powered attorney Ben Brofman said, "I was told by the U.S. Attorney's Office that Mr. Banks was and is not a target of their investigation." City Hall tells us a third official also stepped down today, Mohammed Bahi, with the Community Affairs Unit. This is one City Hall insider tells us Mayor Adams continues to look for a permanent NYPD commissioner. Interim NYPD Commissioner Tom Sullivan has denied wrongdoing after the FBI searched his home for classified material from 20 years ago when Sullivan had served with the FBI.
Eric, what do you think, bro? They all say, all their lawyers say they're not targets to the investigation. Do you believe them?
Absolutely not. That's the job of their lawyer. Their lawyer's job is to defend them no matter what. No matter what, they're supposed to show some teeth and defend them through this entire operation, whether they're guilty or not. That doesn't matter. The job of their attorneys is to defend them, and it's just more gaslighting. It's gaslighting from the attorneys. It's gaslighting from Eric Adams. It's just completely a lie, this administration. We've never seen the like it. Again, I'm going to use this term. I say the preponderance of evidence is there. Everyone's resigning. I mean, we have this list, this card of all the people that resigned. We need to have a list of actually who's left. Who is left at this point? And again, what's crazy about the structure, the political structure of New York City is Eric Adams. The entire administration is falling, but yet he still holds the authority to appoint a new police commissioner if he sees fit. If he sees fit at this point, he can remove Donahue and he can put someone else in place as police commissioner. If he really is going to step down, if he wants to just create more turmoil, if he wants as a response out of spite, He could put someone that's completely inadequate as the police commissioner, just as a way to stick it to the city on his way out. But I don't know. Honestly, you're right. It's impossible for him to leave at this point. Everyone has stepped down. Who is left? No one else is going to take these positions. He can't appoint anyone at this point. So hopefully, what I like to say out of this is hopefully that there is some value out of this. And hopefully we learn something by this, that people have to get out there and vote, and people have to protest. People have to protest against officials that do not belong in their position. We have to protest against failed leadership. And this is failed leadership. All these appointments, we can't say that Banks is responsible for himself and his brother and all this. But we have to look at this and say, what led to this potential corruption? If in fact there is mass corruption throughout Eric Adams and the entire administration of what's going on with Turkey, or maybe other stuff that's behind the curtain that has not been unveiled yet, the value of this should come to and say, you know what, we need to look at nepotism. Nepotism is a huge problem. I say it all the time, even before we did the actual episode of nepotism when it comes to NYPD. But nepotism at every level is a huge problem. And I believe when nepotism is so egregious that we see when it comes to Eric Adams' administration, and, especially with the NYPD, we see how it equates to corruption. So that's the value. And I hope that we see that see someone else as the mayor or other appointments, and we start to see those signs of nepotism, which could equate to more corruption. We have to put a stop to it immediately. Nepotism is a huge failure. We talk about DEI a lot, but when it comes to this administration, it's not DEI, it's nepotism.
Well, I think it's a lot. I think it's further than nepotism at this point. I think it's called absolute, utter, total criminal corruption. That's what I think. I think it's beyond it at this point. You know
what I'm saying. But it's
yeah. With all the appointments, the appointments are all. If I could trust you to not rat on me to the feds, and if you do, you get fired. If you don't, you get legal representation. You get taxpayer-funded legal representation. So we got 669 people here. We're talking about the downfall of the Eric Adams administration. But for the first time ever, I think this is kind of relates, just especially because where I'm at right now. We're going to have to do a little weather segment, I think. This Hurricane Milton's reaching max limit leads for calls for a new Category 6 designation for hurricanes. So I'm in the northeast of Florida. So I don't know what's going to happen in the next coming days, if I'll even have power to do the show, but we'll try. Obviously, I didn't get called to evacuate yet, but if we do, I have 2 young children. I'm obviously going to leave. I'm not going to hang out. So I will evacuate. If ordered to. If I'm only going to hit like 70-mile-an-hour winds, I'm not. I'm not technically in an evacuation zone at any point. But I did buy my house in an area for that specific reason, because I did get smashed in Sandy on Staten Island, and I never thought that would have happened. I was at Sandy actually laughing. So I think this is going to be another unfortunate incident for Florida. Our good friend Mighty Fuzz Young, he's up in North Carolina right now. Sal Greco just got back from North Carolina. He was helping do some security and relief over there. Mighty Fuzz Young is dropping some supplies off up there as we speak. So thank you to all you who donated to him. He's up there now. Pretty devastating situation. And this is coming in right now. It's hitting about 200 miles an hour at some points in the ocean. It's going to hit Tampa yet again. It's already devastated. So I think we're going to see some lapses, because depending how bad Florida is, I'll probably end up doing some volunteer work as well. So let's see what happens with that. Eric, what are you thinking about this hurricane? What do you think about the media hype around it? Is it real? Should people evacuate if ordered?
So I personally, I was affected by Hurricane Sandy. I had a house in Staten Island that suffered substantial amount of damage. I had evacuated at the time. And I lost every picture I've ever had. So I lost a lot of memories. I lost all my documents. But you know what? In the end, it was just a home. It was just a structure. Everybody was okay. Was really affected by it. And at the same time, I'll never forget, I was working the Lower East Side, and at the time we had a blackout. So I was suffering with the devastation of my own home that I had lost. while working in the Lower East Side, we were working at pitch black for about 2 weeks. There was absolutely no power in the Lower East Side. I think it was from 34th Street down, if anybody remembers. So I'm suffering with damage. All the tools that I ever had, they were looted. I don't blame the police department. It was a rough time. And then also in 2005, I went with the police department. I deployed down to New Orleans, and I helped out with Hurricane Katrina. And I was there for about 3 weeks. So I saw this devastation with that, and the smell was just horrendous. And I really saw the devastation with the police department back then, and saw the people crying in the streets. This stuff is real. This is human nature, and I think that no matter where you some people say, well, don't live in Florida, don't live in these places. No matter where you live, I always say it's quite taxing. There's something. If you live in California, you'll suffer from earthquakes. If you live in the Midwest, there's tornadoes. If you live in Florida, there's earthquakes. If you live in New York, you have snowstorms. If you live in Asia, you have monsoons and tsunamis. So there's always some type of tax where you live and some type of weather to deal with. So please, my message to people out there is don't worry about possessions. Possessions are temporary. Memories are forever. What's most important is that you take care of yourself and you take care of your family. And please be kind to others, help others. If you have clothes, extra clothes that you don't need, please donate it. If you have some money to help these people in North Carolina, help them, pay it forward, help others before you help yourself. If you have the opportunity to if you have time off to go out there and drop off supplies, do it. Support Mighty Fuzz, who's out there right now. We've all been trying to help him out. And the way that he described it, at first he just thought he would take a small van down there, but he had to go out and get a U-Haul because people have just really gotten together, and the kindness that he saw. It's a shame, but it's the reality. In times of devastation and desperation is when we see people come together, especially and see New Yorkers come together in that way. It's nice to see. I'm traveling right now. I'm all over the country. I've been all over the world, but all over the country, New Yorkers get a bad rap because they move fast. But, a lot of people I meet, like, oh, I've been to New York, and it turned out the people are really nice. The people are really cool. They move fast. So thank you so much to the people, what you're doing. And, John, I think that no matter what, if there's going to be high winds, why not evacuate? We'll do our best just to do the podcast. Of course, if the weather gets too bad, we might have to shut down for a while. And if it gets really that bad, I might fly out and help out. So I've done it before, and, I wouldn't mind doing it again.
Yeah, so I think that's it. If you're in an evacuation zone, obviously get out. If your family's in an evacuation zone, tell them to get the hell out. I think that's just the safest bet. Sandy, like I said, I didn't think my house would ever get touched. I was at work. I came home, and next thing I know, I'm walking waist deep of water to get to my house. And I get there, my neighbors, I was working. I think I told my pregnant wife with my young daughter to go to her mother's, who was higher ground than we were. Just because I thought we would lose power. And when I got home, my neighbors, I remember, were crying. One of my neighbors in particular, she's like, oh, my God, my wedding photo. I was like, your wedding photos? I'm like, I haven't looked at my wedding photos since my wedding. Like, I don't even think I ever looked at them. I'm like, my wife made me spend a whole ton of money on all these photos. I never even look at them. I actually might look at them now because I've never looked at them. But I was like, what are you worried about? Don't worry about it. Everybody's healthy. That's it. It's only possessions. And, that's how I look at it. I don't give a shit about anything. As long as my family's good, I could care less. You got to consider yourself blessed at that point. You're out, you could rebuild houses. You build a new house. That's it. Your walls get taken down. You could do the kitchen the way you want it to. It is what it is. It's going to be a pain in the ass, but you deal with it. Jesse James donated $4.99 to the podcast. Thank you, Jesse James. Appreciate you always being here with us as well, brother. So yeah, and YouTube user said that, by the way, he said that it's not that he's afraid of the job. He's just not too technically savvy. So he must have went to school with Eric. And that's it.
Someone tried to abuse me. One of these fake accounts tried to abuse me the other day with viral news. Oh, yesterday actually made a comment about, do I do pay to play? Because I didn't comment on something stupid viral news said. Is my stalling shut down? I said, I just want to say thank you for watching the podcast, because clearly, clearly I know you're watching the podcast. But I can care less. But I will say this. So if any of our friends and listeners on this podcast, if you're actually in Florida or in any of these evacuation zones right now that could be affected from this hurricane, one thing I did learn, possessions are temporary, But if you evacuate, take your documents, because that's one thing I wish I would have taken. When I evacuated for Hurricane Sandy, I did not take my my documents. So I had to get all new passports, and I had to get all new birth certificates and all that kind of stuff. So that was a little bit of a pain. And so that stuff I would have taken. Other than that, the other stuff I could care less. Your refrigerators, your stuff. Who cares? Pictures, yeah, they're important. But that's a good question, John. I actually was talking about that the other day with somebody who actually looks at their wedding album. Like, if people came over your house, it's kind of weird. Like, hey, you want to see my wedding album? I don't know. Who actually looks at it? We spent thousands of dollars on it. You put it to bed. Like, who actually looks at this thing? You're muted.
I'm pulling this video up. Audio is going to be a little grainy. Somebody, listener, a friend to the podcast, sent this in, and obviously it's coming from off his phone. But this is Miranda this morning on New York One. I'm just curious what it is. I haven't listened to it yet, so hopefully we don't get pranked. But I know the person, so it's good. But yeah, the audio might be a little grainy, but let's hear what Miranda's got to say. He defends his actions amid the city department on investigations. So for those of you that don't know, Sheriff Anthony Miranda, who was appointed by New York City Mayor Eric Adams, another illustrious appointment of Eric Adams. He testified recently in front of City Council that the sheriff's office was not responsible for confiscating money, although numerous people who have been raided by the New York City Sheriff's Office have said that the Sheriff's Office has confiscated money from them and has not given them a receipt for it. And then after we did that show and started pointing it out online what was going on, he then called the Department of Investigation and said that he found anywhere from like $100,000 to $150,000 in his office, and he doesn't know where it came from. So he hasn't publicly spoke, but this is him. We keep forgetting about him in the Eric Adams web of corruption, but he's obviously someone that's going to play a major role. Let's listen to what he has to say and then weigh in it. First time we're hearing it, so thank you for sending this in.
Investigation gives us, and we will continue to evolve in that process. But we have been automating our process there, vouchering all kinds of properties that come into our custody, not just the padlock to protect. But so clarity is very important about these stories. There's never been any raids or inspections or interviews in our facility regarding any missing money. All the money that was accounted for from these inspections are on video, on body-worn cameras, and they're accounted for.
There've also been some questions directed toward you on donations solicited for the National Latino Officers Association. Are you, in looking at your conduct there, satisfied that you were able to separate that role from your official role?
I haven't solicited any money for the National Latino Officers Association for any cannabis operation, so that is a false narrative. Okay, it's not true at all. There's no validity to the story, and I'm clear about that. We're complying with any of the law, rules, and regulations. And
what do you think, Eric?
Here we go. Here's another outright lie, because it wasn't shortly before this. He couldn't remember at all if there was any money seized. He couldn't figure out if there were what arrests were made or how many arrests were made. He had no idea about any funding. He didn't have any documentation to show what money was seized, and that is their number one priority. It's a revenue-based operation, the sheriff's office. It's civil in nature. It's a revenue-based operation, and he had no idea how much money is seized. And now he's actually saying that, everything was accounted for. How could everything be accounted for if you didn't know how much was to account for? Doesn't make any sense. Another lie.
Yeah, again, and I think what people got to understand is, like, when these people are going on the news or they're giving statements to the news, they're not under oath, like they're not under penalty of perjury. So obviously they're the ones that are spreading misinformation. I mean, the Eric Adams administration is the king of misinformation. It honestly, you've never seen a mayoral administration like this anywhere in the country that just spreads false lies, false rumors, and calls everybody else a liar. You point to the truth and they lie, so yeah, I don't believe a word he's saying. I think that it absolutely has teeth to it. Now he's saying all the money's accounted for and everything's on body camera, when before he was saying when he testified on the oath that they didn't have it. They didn't take any. So it's like, well, which one was it, dude? Are you stupid or are you corrupt? Which one was it? Tell us. Did you not know the procedures and everything was on the up and up? Just luckily, not because of your leadership or because of your management skills. Was it that you're a terrible manager and you have no idea what the work of that your workers do, or are you just singing your tune? So I mean, I honestly don't believe a word that he said. A full audit should be conducted of the New York City Sheriff's Office and anyone who was involved in any of these raids. I don't believe it whatsoever. And I think when you look at that, there's going to be a lot of things that are going to be wrong, whether it's corruption or it's complete incompetence. I don't know, but you will definitely see something there. I mean, that testimony was awful.
This is hilarious, by the way. Drone Ranger says, please cast Danny Trejo as Miranda and Crumbs. That's hilarious. But yeah, listen, honestly, I would have rathered that this administration, which to me is another indicative component, contributory factor, that this administration, the preponderance of evidence is met that it's riddled with corruption. Because it would have been better off, honestly, if Miranda said, listen, I've never been the sheriff. I've never been in a position like this. I really don't understand the entire nomenclature. And I think I made a mistake. We went back and I had to learn how this is really revenue-based and figure out how to keep better auditing and understand the process better. Now we can say, okay, they're stupid. They're morons. They don't really know their job, but then they're not corrupt. But they're not saying that unless they're too proud to say that. What they're saying is, oh, no, all that money is accounted for. But what money? Because you testified to Justin Brannon that you weren't aware of any money. So how could you account for something that wasn't even accounted for in the first place? So again, to me, just more preponderance of evidence that this is a corrupt administration, that they're acting stupidly because they're corrupt.
Yeah. I mean, I just think, I don't think he should have ever been in the position. He must have been the worst sergeant in the NYPD. He must have been horrible. Like, he must have been terror. He must have not known anything. And then the other thing is he's saying that nobody ever went there. DOI never went there. There were no interviews. I mean, like, I don't believe a word of it. I know for a fact they were there. So I'm like, I don't know what you're talking about, dude. Nobody believes you. Again, for the sheriff's union, we threw the invite out there. We know you were on the chat recently. Still, the offer still stands. We'd like to hear your opinion on everything that comes in. Patrick Donahue says the over-explaining / answering the question as to whether or not Miranda solicited donations to the National Latino Officers Association is textbook for trying to sell a lie. Yeah, the way that he stared directly in the face, that is usually textbook of trying to sell a lie. I'm not an expert in that, but yeah, absolutely. I didn't do that, and so that was the other accusation, right, is that he was soliciting donations, and that was an accusation that came out from a former, I don't know if he's still on the job, captain of the NYPD, Gonzalez. That was 50 Cent actually sued him when he was the CEO of the 7-2, saying that he was trying to shake down his business for donations to Hurricane Katrina, and when they didn't give it, when they didn't give those donations, then he was met with enforcement. So that was a lawsuit that happened. I don't know what happened with that lawsuit. I think it was thrown out. So, but Miranda's getting the same exact accusation now. And like I said, we've had a lot of different accusations from different marijuana businesses in New York City that everything's being done arbitrarily and capriciously, from getting the licenses all the way to the type of enforcement that they're being received. So yeah, full audit of New York City Sheriff's Office should be conducted. All of the finances, all of their raids, everything needs to be looked at.
I don't understand. This question comes up quite often. We talked about it in the podcast. Tim Compton says, what scares me is who will take Adams' place if he resigns. Honestly, we hear that question quite often, and I don't get it. How could it scare you if Eric Adams leaves? What did Eric Adams do that benefited the city? So, John, you had said something earlier about the burden of the taxpayer because of all these attorneys. If we just look at that, this administration, how much, what do we have, 26 or 27 people that resigned and they all have legal counsel? How much is that costing the city? We're talking about billions of dollars right now. So how could anything be worse than Eric Adams for this city? I don't get that question. John, what do you think about that? I don't get it at all. I just don't get it.
Yeah, I mean, we spoke about it earlier, and I don't. I mean, you're not worried about a criminal enterprise running New York City and all of his appointments bleeding New York City tax funds and coffers dry, using all of our resources to fund his friends. I don't think people understand the financial impact of sending hundreds of millions of dollars of taxpayer money gone. I don't think money doesn't grow on trees, people. That's your money. It's money that we spent. If you're relying on a pension, if you want a pension, they are going to touch your pension at some point. Believe me. And this is going to come. You think when all this stuff happens to New York City and resources are being limited and there's no cops and there's no services and there's no ambulances, that the people in New York City are going to say, oh, but make sure those cops get paid and get their pension. Do you think that in this environment? Absolutely not. I don't see it. I don't know what people are worried about. This should be the scariest thing ever to you, that a seated mayor is possibly running a criminal enterprise where he was utilizing the upper echelon of the NYPD to run an extortion racketeering ring, and at the same time helping along this crisis of this politically created crisis of illegal immigrants flowing into New York City and funding hundreds of millions of dollars to it, only to find out that the money's just going to their friends' contracts that aren't actually helping anybody or anything. So I don't know. The whole thing's a racket. I'm not worried at all. I don't care who it is, because if they're doing the same thing he did, they need to be removed too. If they're going to make the same incompetent appointments that he did, they need to be removed as well. The picture I have up is Sheena Wright. She has just resigned, even though yesterday Eric Adams told us that she wasn't, and it was a lie, and it was misinformation. So again, we just hear lie after lie coming from this administration, and I'll bring that video up again. So Sheena Wright has just resigned, and again, we're met with yet another lie. It's not anything that you should be shocked about. Obviously, Eric Adams lies to you every day, and everyone's okay with it. Everyone's completely okay with it. We brought to you yesterday. Yesterday, we brought to you Eric Adams lying and saying Sheena Wright was not going to resign, and sure enough, here it is. Sheena Wright just resigned.
Yeah, I don't understand how people feel that these pensions are just completely protected. That's not the case at all. I mean, if we look back at the history of the variable supplement was awarded because the union actually lent the city money from the pension system. So the pension is not protected. I mean, if the city goes so broke, they're going to have to dip into your pension. So we have to protect our pensions. So if you think that it can't get worse than Eric Adams, I'm sorry, you think it's going to get worse than Eric Adams, I don't see how it could be worse. He's bleeding the city right now. And it's going to be a financial crisis for the city. Absolutely. Popeye, damn it. Want to thank you so much. $20. New platform. I'm old. Listen, it's okay to be old. We appreciate it. We have a lot of retirees who are friends and listeners to this podcast. You get older, you get wiser. Listen, thank you so much for being here. Can we please, our friends and listeners to the podcast, like and subscribe if you like the content here. We appreciate it. John, how many people do we have in the chat right now as we speak?
We got 660 people in here. If you guys could just like, subscribe, check the bell if you're on YouTube or Rumble. If you're on social media, if you could like and reshare the post, we appreciate it. Help us grow in the algorithm. We'll get more people in here. Appreciate it, all you guys, for being with us today.
Yeah, absolutely. Like and subscribe. Don't be afraid. Listen, we know if you're active with the job, and we don't want you to face any repercussions. Just use a fake handle. Juju is a fake handle. John and Kaz Daughtry, they know about that. So just like, subscribe, and we appreciate it. It builds the algorithm, helps the content, allows us all to grow together and keep building this network. Here's our buddy Eric Adams with another smile, and this is him talking about Sheena Wright, right? And here we go.
Yeah, this is him the other day, 2 days ago, saying that everything you're hearing about Sheena Wright's a lie. And then today we hear she resigns. not shocked. I mean, because that was the information that was put out, and this is him lying again.
Are you expecting Sheena to be the Q&A this week?
But we reformatted our Q&A because it just focused on this, the investigation, and not the work that my deputy mayors have done and will continue to do. I don't want to put my deputy mayors through that. And I thought it was unfortunate that there was a lie passed out that First Deputy Mayor Wright was escorted out of City Hall. That was just a lie. It was a lie that she resigned on Friday. It was a lie. I think there's so many mistruths out there that we need to be accurate. And all you got to do is ask the administration. And so it's unfortunate that First Deputy Mayor Wright had to go through those series of lies and hysteria. It's like a feeding frenzy of accuracy and truthfulness does no longer matter. We should allow the process to take its place, and that's the discipline that I have and I'm going to maintain.
Is she planning to resign, and what are you looking for in the next First Deputy Mayor?
When the decision is made of policy, we must have said this 1,000 times in this administration, not only now, but in the past. When the decision is made, the policy shifts. No matter if we bring someone on or someone decides to leave, we make it a formal announcement so that there's no rumors attached to it. And I'm looking for exactly what Sheena has always brought to us, a level of commitment and dedication. As long as she wants to do that, I'm happy to have her. And whoever comes in any of our positions, we want that same level of commitment and dedication. Yes.
There he goes, lying again with a straight face.
Well, what is he talking about, though? Whoever comes here, you appoint who comes there. It makes it seem like people are just going to come flocking in, like these appointments were just handed to them. No, you appointed these people. Everything that comes out of his mouth is a lie. It's funny how he says mistruths. You're the one that's giving these mistruths about what your administration is doing. What is your administration doing? There is no administration left. It's funny he's saying, look what my administration is doing, because as he's giving this speech, there's no administration left. So what is he talking about? Another lie. I just don't know how he continues to lie after lie. And how are people not out there screaming, like, get the hell out of our city. Get out of here. You're destroying the city. Honestly, if every person that resigned, indicted, terminated from the police department, from this administration, has a legal defense, honestly, John, how much is this really costing? Let's just rhetorically say it's $500 an hour and 20-something people have a legal defense. We're talking billions of dollars here. This is insane. And I'm scared for the pensions. I mean, we have pensions. We can be affected by it. So this is a huge problem. You know, people say, why do you care? You don't live in New York City? I care. I have family in New York City. New York City is dear to us, and we have pensions that are in New York City. So of course we care.
Yeah, I mean, it's the stupidest thing. You know, I love when Juju says that, because unlike him and Viral News and all these other people, I actually own property in New York. I don't live with my mother. So like I like that. That's why I care, because I have tons of investments plus a pension in there. And I still have family there. You're out of your mind. People are out of your mind, you know. What do you care? And like we said, and even if none of that was true, so goes New York, so goes the world. Who's better suited to give analysis of New York City and the NYPD than two lifelong New Yorkers who lived there over 40 years and worked for the police department over 40 years? I don't think there's too many people more qualified. But no, you'd rather some kid who graduated college, moved in from Ohio to analyze what's going on the news and lives there, who currently lives there, and he'll live there for a 2 to 3 year period before he himself moves to Florida and still gives you news daily while pretending that he lives in New York City. You'd rather that. Get it? So, you know, we're going on about 2 hours. I think one more topic that we should bring in is the gaslighting of the NYPD. I do think we're going to see some resignations soon from the NYPD. Probably, I would think early next week. So all those resignations that were supposed to happen 2 weeks ago when Eric Adams said that no one's going anywhere, that got pulled back. I think you're going to start to see people leave. It might even be this week. Later on this week, you're going to see them leave. So this is coming in from NYPD News. This is them gaslighting you and trying to explain away all of these technology contracts, and they're overinflating the capabilities of the drone technology. I just want you to take a look at that. And then, Eric, let's get your thoughts. Here's the video from NYPD News. I have it up on the screen. Here we go.
The exercise that we're conducting here today is a coastal storm exercise utilizing drone technology. The scenario is a hurricane has just hit Staten Island in multiple locations, and we've been asked to respond and assist with drones. The first thing that happened today was search and rescue of victims at multiple locations. All the victims were able to be found by our responders from FDNY and NYPD.
So before we even go further, I just want to say, dude, we're talking about 200-mile-an-hour winds. We're talking about Hurricane Milton right now. 200-mile-an-hour winds, 180-mile-an-hour winds. They're saying when it makes landfall, 140-mile-an-hour winds. The drones wouldn't be able to operate in a quarter of that.
I was thinking the same thing first. I'm so glad you mentioned that. Those drones would be gone, first of all. And 100-mile-an-hour, maybe, I don't even know what their capacity is, but maybe even 40-mile winds. Those drones are gone. Arthur Roldan, thank you so much, brother. Just want to say $4.99 to the podcast. I was going to mention that also. That's a great point. He just mentioned here to go back on the pension systems. You're absolutely right, brother. I'm glad you brought that. I was going to mention that. Detroit went bankrupt and defaulted on city worker pensions like 5 to 10 years ago. Just to preview what is to come with corrupt administrations. Arthur, you nailed it, brother. That is a mirror image of what's happening right now. And right now is actually worse than what happened in Detroit. Great point. Your pensions are not protected. That's why you have to care. If you're a retiree and you're outside New York City, it's important what goes on in New York City because we're affected by it. So, Juju, if you think we're not affected by it and we shouldn't care, well, you should care too, because pretty soon you'll be headed to 233 Broadway. And if you live outside the great state of New York and if you decide to move to America somewhere in the country, you'll care about New York City also. So, yeah, I mean, John, this is absolutely ridiculous. This is just total gaslight. And, could it work for a little storm? Maybe, but high winds, this drone out there, is anybody buying this? What do they do? They're selling cars? They're trying to sell this information. It's just an outright lie.
Yeah. Oh, everybody was saved. So Superstorm Sandy, a father and daughter are ripped out at the end of a street. I'm not going to name the street, but below Highland Boulevard, they were actually ripped out to sea. There's no drone that was going to save them during that time. And as a storm surge happening, as the wind's happening, no drone is going to save you. So this whole part is absolutely ridiculous. Beautiful sunny day. Here on Staten Island, it appears that they're doing this. They might be doing it elsewhere. Could be Staten Island. I'm not sure. Could be the deep end of Staten Island. But beautiful sunny day. And even in some windy areas of that, those drones will not work properly even on just a regular day. So I don't know what the hell they're talking about. So let's go through the rest of this video.
Additionally, we had to do a search indoors the building, because we don't want to risk our responders in a building such as this one. We had a portion where rescuers couldn't reach victims, so a breaching drone was utilized to enter the building and search for the missing people.
We do. Why does the kid have a plastic bag all around?
I was wondering the same thing. I was like, it was like a shower curtain over. I don't even know. I have no idea. I tell you what, this is total BS, but it's hilarious at the same time. Is anybody buying this?
I think this portion's good though. I think that this portion's like this is something that could be used, right? Yeah, someone said that. Look, why does this guy have a plastic bag all the time? Like, I don't. It's weird. I don't know. The NYPD wasn't following the instructions on the plastic bag. Like, do not put this over your head. They decided to do it all. But I think the drone technology for this isn't inflated. I think this is a proper use of the drone, right? Like, it could not sticking a kid in a plastic bag, but actually flying through a damaged building, 100% could be used. I heard them talking about it being used in fires. That's absolutely not happening with the technology right now. So I don't know what they're talking about with that. We'll have people up on the, maybe you get an overview of the building, but depending the smoke, you're not going to really be able to see. You'll lose valuable time if we're not getting first responders in there. So I don't know, but like this portion's actually based in reality. Is this happening during a hurricane? Absolutely not.
That's my point. That's my point. This is great, under circumstances that maybe you have to evacuate people from building. Maybe there was some type of building collapse. Maybe something with a crane. Incident with a crane collapse. But an actual tornado, a hurricane type of event, no, it's pretty funny. That's not going to happen because the winds are going to be blowing through these windows. It's not happening, and that's the problem I see with this administration when they're selling these drones. The drone is a great tool and it's a great resource. I'm all for tools and resources, but it's supplemental to the human element. And what they don't talk about is the limitations and capabilities, right? Because everything has capabilities and everything has limitations. So there are extreme amount of capabilities to drones, but there's also limitations. And I think that the weather is a limitation for the drone, depending on what the weather is.
Yeah, so look at this again. Look at it trying to break the window to get in. And now just imagine it was just slightly windy. Now, forget a hurricane. It's just slightly a windy day. We're getting 15, 20 mile an hour winds. Tell me that this drone's going to be effective. Watch this. Watch this again.
We had a portion where rescuers couldn't reach victims. So a breaching drone was utilized to enter the building and search for the missing people.
So clearly that wasn't, clearly that's not something that could happen. There's a kid with the plastic bag on his head again. All right, now they're showing the search rescue. Let's get through the end of this. Let's see what else.
We look to taking any gaps that we found today and improving our process and being ready for the real storm when it comes.
Is that kid protecting himself from water? Is that what that is? That plastic bag? I don't know.
I don't know. That must have been Kaz's idea. I think he kept the
Anybody
plastic bag on his head too long. Yeah.
I love to see when they were putting this together. Like, anybody got the plastic bag? Where's the plastic bag? They gotta love the NYPD.
Yeah, so that's that's the state of New York City today. So the downfall of the Eric Adams administration. I think it's coming sooner than later. I don't know. I don't see how he could hold on past the election. I just don't. I don't see it. I think, like I said, I think we're going to see a lot more resignations now. That the resignations are going to start in the NYPD. You're going to see some high-ranking members of the NYPD because, again, what's the standard? If you're under a federal investigation, you need to resign, right? Ed Caban was the first one, right? He said his lawyer said he wasn't a target. He resigned, and then so on and so forth and so on, all the way to now, what Phil Banks is also saying. His lawyer is also saying he's not a target, but he also resigned. So, mind you, some of these people are only involved in one federal corruption investigation. Eric Adams is involved in several. And not only is he involved in these several corruption investigations, he's also the only one. Well, I'm sorry, not the only one. He's one of the few in his administration to be indicted. And even in that one indictment for that one investigation, the U.S. Attorney General, the U.S. Attorney General's, not the U.S. Attorney General, the U.S. The lawyer for the United States is saying that that he's going to get subsequent charges just in that one, and now the other allegations are going to come out. So we're going to see what happens with that.
Yeah, oh, absolutely. I will say this. So if Juju makes it to 233 Broadway in the coming days or the coming weeks, is Juju still going to watch this podcast on a daily basis? Because I will miss Juju. Hey, Juju, if you retire in the next couple of days, which I suspect you or they or them, because I know this is more than one person on this handle, well, you'll have a lot of opportunity to watch this podcast. Maybe you'll actually come on the podcast. Maybe you'll actually grow the guts. Ron Laser says that is also a 1940s single pane window. Would it break a modern day double pane window? I was thinking the same thing. That window was much easier to penetrate, but some of these modern day windows, I mean, some strong glass. That's a great point. Does it have the technology and the capabilities to actually penetrate those type of glass? I don't know. It looked kind of tough just going to that single pane window. That's a great point. Again, goes back to what I was saying. Any technology has limitations and capabilities.
Yeah, it's 100% a great point, Ron. Is that getting through a double pane window? It doesn't look like it to me. Nighthawk says Adams is talking at a meeting with the NYPD right now, and he's going to talk live in Channel 7 at 12 noon today. Who knows? He might step down as well today. Today might be the end of the road, folks. Yeah, anything's possible, dude. Like I said, I can't. I don't see it. I don't see any way that this is viable or
you want to bet on it
much longer. Yeah, I'll 100%. I'll bet on it because I don't see any way.
Well, you say is he going to resign today or not?
I didn't say today, but I said in the next few weeks he's gone. I don't see him making it past the. I don't see him.
Eventually he's going to have to. Like it's virtually impossible, right? How could he? I mean, it would just be the most insane thing if he stays there and there's just no one left in the administration. Like, it would be insane. At some point, we'd have to say there has to be a protest out there for people saying he needs to go. You would hope that people would be standing in front of Gracie Mansion like, you have nobody left. It's cost the city billions of dollars. You got to go. Just Arthur pointed out, a corrupt administration could really bleed these pensions. And we're not just talking about NYPD, right? All the pensions. $11.99. We're talking about all the pensions that could be affected by it, not just the NYPD. So that's something that needs to be looked at. So all New York City workers could be affected by it.
Listen, like I told you, when I was in New York City last week, I met with a couple of people in the know, and they were told me Phil Banks ain't going anywhere. And I said, I can't see it. I can't see that. You're right. I'm like, I don't agree with that at all. I said it on this podcast. I said Phil Banks was going to step down. Even though everything I heard from very credible, good sources who know these people who are in the talks were telling me, no, there's no way he's stepping down. I'm like, I don't see it. And I'm in the same place with Eric Adams. I don't care what anybody tells me, who it is that I don't care if Kathy Holtz will call me right now. Like, John, stop saying that. He's not going anywhere. I don't believe it. I can't believe it. I just can't. I'm saying it now. Yeah, Vet said $100 bet. I'll take $100 bet, 100%.
But you're thinking like a normal human being.
He's not making it to November 5th. I can't
John,
see it.
Don't you think you're thinking like a normal human being though? He's not normal. Like you're thinking like a normal human being would say that.
No, I agree with you. So Lone Silence has said. He said if he lasts to January 1st, 2025, you almost have to give him Man of the Year for his ability to survive. You know what? If Eric Adams lasts to January 1st, 2025, he's going to be Man of the Year for 2024 for New York's Finest Unfiltered podcast. He's winning that award. I agree.
Listen, remember you said that. If you know what? If Eric Adams lasts to January 1st, 2025, we're going to have to make up T-shirts. The Finest Unfiltered Man of the Year. You're not kidding.
No, we're gonna have to host an event and have him we're gonna have to go to New York City, host an event, and give him an award. He's the Man of the Year.
Do you think that Kathy Hochul, let's be honest, do you think she would publicly say, "I'm going to remove Mayor Eric Adams"? Do you think those words would come out of her mouth?
I don't think she's going to say it. I think she told him. It's the same way like Eric Adams hasn't removed anybody. The same way that Eric Adams hasn't removed anyone. He's like, nah, they're not going nowhere, And then he's like, yeah, they just moved on with their life. I think you're going to see Kathy Hochul say, yeah, Eric just decided to move on with his life. And like, that's what I think, Driver Seat says Sheena Wright won't be turning off the lights. Who's going to turn off the lights is the question. Is the last people to go members of the NYPD? Like, who are the last people? Is it going to be Ingrid? Is Ingrid the last person? Or is it going to be Eric? Ultimately, Eric's the last person that could turn off the lights. He's the last person in the administration.
Well,
and
that I agree. If Eric Adams will resign on his own volition, he'll be the last one standing. That I agree. But I want to see this bet play out between you and Yvette. You know what, Yvette? I don't know. This is getting crazy. This is absurd. Like I said, we're trying to think like normal human being. I'm trying to put myself in the mind of Eric Adams and what is he thinking? I mean, because how can he still have a smile? This is the most insane smile, honestly. His smile is like, it's almost like the Joker. When you watch the Joker, it's a steady smile and never goes away. His smile doesn't go away. Like, how can he be smiling right now? The whole world's crumbling. You cost the city billions of dollars. The legacy forever in the books is going to be that your whole administration resigned, indicted, under clouds of suspicion. You could be going to jail and he's still smiling. It's insane. What kind of meds is he taking? I want to take what he's taking. So, guys, no matter what, he's happy.
Listen, say what you want about him. He might be a little light in the loafers, but the guy's got balls of steel. He might have been at those freak out parties with Diddy and with his bishop or whatever the dude's name was, Bishop Lamar Whitehead. They might have been some weird stuff going on with all those dudes. And who else was it rooming he was with? Gilliam, right? Gilliam, the Florida governor, the dude that almost beat DeSantis. It's all those rumors of that they were at a freak off. It might be all true, but I got to give it to him. The dude's got balls. The guy's got brass balls, bro. I'm not that one thing I'm going to say. So Wednesday, October 9th, annual Detectives Endowment Association Awards dinner. They're honoring the Man of the Year, Edward Caban, for the Police Commissioner, City of New York. They're also honoring Michael J. Palladino, past president of the DA. They're going to have a ceremony for fallen Detective Jonathan Diller. The Detective Stephen McDonald Humanitarian Awards going to go to Brian Hunt, retired board officer. Wednesday, October 9th, Russo's on the Bay. I heard that they secretly rescinded the Man of the Year award for Edward Caban quietly. I don't know that that's true because I did get this a bunch of times this morning before we went live. I don't know. I wouldn't be shocked if he received the Man of the Award. Eric Adams just did. Why Eric Adams just received Man of the Year for the Hispanic Society? So why would you remove Ed Caban? Give him Man of the Year. Just show everybody how corrupt you all are.
Yeah, the only thing with Ed Caban, the year is only going to be 10 months, though. Oh, no, I'm sorry. When did he resign? He resigned in, was it September or August? I think it's September. So he's the Man of the Year for 9 months. The other 3 months we can't account for. But he's Man of the Year for 9 months. It's unbelievable. This is insane, dude. I can't believe that they didn't rescind this stuff. It says a lot about these fraternal organizations. It says a lot about the DEA. Embarrassment. It looks ridiculous.
Yeah, no, it's absolutely ridiculous. So, all right. So listen, we'll take it moment by moment. We'll let you know about tomorrow, the next day. Hopefully we'll still be here. Hopefully we'll still be up all week. I'm hoping so, if not, we'll figure it out. Even if we get evacuated, maybe the time switch, whatever. But I'm still down to do the podcast. The only way I won't do it is if I'm in a mess. So, we'll see what happens. But I think this is, to me, again, this is the downfall of the Eric Adams administration. I believe we are witnessing the last days. This is going to be a wild ride. We're still in uncharted waters. Anything's possible. So all of our predictions can be wrong. I'm enjoying the ride. It's another episode of As New York City Burns, and here we go. We'll see what the rest of today plays out. I'm looking forward to Off Topic Tuesday with Eric Adams, and I'm looking forward to this press conference at 12 after he meets with the NYPD. We'll see what else happens. But yeah, let's buckle up. If he does resign at any point, obviously, I believe we're going to have to do an emergency podcast. So, Paulie says, John, Kaz is going to send a drone your way. Hope so. Paulie, I'm seeing your comment on my phone. Make sure you're in the live chat, bro. If you want us to see it, I could post it up here. So for those of you for the future. So thanks everyone for the donations. Thanks everybody for everything. Definitely check out Tom Sullivan. Check out Stephanie Liggio. We appreciate getting strong candidates on there. We also had our good friend Tom LaPola, who's up in Monroe. He's also running for the assembly. So let's help get some more people in in office, some common sense people. And for those of you in Florida, if you're in an evacuation zone, evacuate. Seriously, don't sit and stay at the house. Take whatever's valuable, your jewelry, your documents, like Eric said, take your most valuable guns if that's what you're worried about. Put stuff up high, like things of that nature. Just take your jewelry, your money, things of that nature, and get out of there. What are they going to loot? You're going to come to my house and take what? You're going to steal my weights? You're going to steal my TVs? I'll just buy new ones. I don't care. It's no big deal.
Hey, shout out to Sal Greco. Thank you so much, brother. As always. He put, there is nothing like waking up on a weekday and watching this podcast, laughs while being serious, and even guest. Sal, thank you, brother. Much love, man. I appreciate that comment. It's awesome. Listen, we cover a lot of topics here. Eric Adams is he still alive? I'm going to have to check it out after this, but I'm surprised. There won't be no surprise. There'll still be more lying. Thank you so much, our friends and listeners, for being with us. Like and subscribe, please. Spread out the content. Build this network with us. Get this information out there. We'll be back tomorrow, 8:05 Eastern Time. And, of course, 5:05 for us people on the West Coast. You get up bright and early, have coffee with us, and we'll keep this going. The content keeps going. If John Shell, Kaz Daughtry make it to 233 Broadway, the show goes on. The show, I will miss them being part of the NYPD. I mean, they do keep me entertained. But we'll keep this going. As John said, if you're out there in evacuation zone, please be safe. If there's stuff that you need, mention on this podcast. We could all help each other out. Let's get the information out there. Thank you so much, everyone. Be safe out there, and much love.
Tom Sullivan is the Republican, Conservative, and Common Sense Party candidate for New York State Assembly District 23. Tom is a financial professional who served simultaneously in the United States Army Reserve for 30 years and has now retired. His district covers Ozone Park, Lindenwold, Howard Beach, Broad Channel, and the Rockaway Peninsula.
Come November, I would empower our law enforcement agencies to go out there and do their job and not put them or their families or their pensions at risk for doing their jobs. We need drastic change in Albany so that we have a say in this matter, and they realize people of New York State will hold them accountable.
The Sullivan family has a legacy of service. Tom served for 30 years protecting and defending the rights of others. Come this November, he has earned your support. This advertisement's paid for by the Friends of Tom Sullivan.
There's a handful of retired officers that don't live in the state that have a lot to say about the dream team, as I like to call it. All of a sudden, they retire and have a master plan on how to fight crime, but nothing to contribute when they were here. They want to come back and be part of the dream team. What can I say?
Law enforcement professionals dedicate their lives to serving and protecting our community. But who's protecting their financial futures? That's where Laidlaw Blue comes in. Our wealth management platform is specifically designed for the law enforcement community. Laidlaw Blue is a division within Laidlaw Wealth Management, run by retired New York City detective John McDermott. His status as a retired detective uniquely positions him to establish a deep connection between Laidlaw Blue and the law enforcement community. Our platform is easy to use and provides a range of financial services, including investment management, retirement planning, and insurance solutions. With Laidlaw Blue, you can secure your financial future and provide for your loved ones. Our team of experienced financial advisors understands the unique challenges and opportunities that law enforcement professionals face. We're here to help you navigate the complexities of financial planning and achieve your goals. Laidlaw Blue. Secure your financial future today. Book a meeting using the QR code displayed or call us directly on 888 901 blue. That's 888 901 blue.